You're live.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Free Assange Online Vigil. This is our 64th week. This is the fifth day in a row,
Brr.
fifth day of the third week of Julian Assange's extraordinary rendition hearing. And I'd like to thank everybody for hopping in at about 6 o'clock in the morning. Court is underway, but they did have a 50-minute delay this morning, so we're not missing too much. So it'll be pretty easy for us to get all caught up here on the proceedings and everything like that. Because there has already been some pretty big developments and statements in the court case. So do we want to just pick right up and jump into it, Steve?
Sounds fine with me. Good morning, by the way. How are you doing? I
Good,
bought
man.
my phone and I'm using my backup lighting and I'm fucking fantastic. Thank you.
I got everything except my laptop and my clothes in the car. And my fancy pink blanket, which I may still use because it's chilly in here.
Right. All right. I wish it was that chilly here in California. I'm just looking at like 100-degree fucking work days going into October.
That's pretty good.
It's gonna be October soon, and it's still gonna be 100 degrees at the fucking job site. I'm really looking forward to that.
So I'm gonna pick up with with Defense Assange as of like an hour and 20 minutes ago. Day 14 of Julian's extradition hearing. Today, we are expecting testimony from Patrick Eller, a digital forensics expert and computer crime on the computer crime charges and the alleged agreement between Assange and Manning to crack a password in 2010. Mark Summers for the defense is saying that the prosecution provided its bundle for Eller, challenging the claims on his statement at 11:30 p.m. last night. So 30 minutes before midnight, the witness got a 368-page prosecution bundle. He got up at 5:30 in the morning to testify, and he has about 5 minutes to review these documents. The defense asks for him to have an hour to review them. Patrick Elmer will argue, Summers says, that the allegations against Assange regarding the password cracking issue is not possible, and if it were possible, that it was not used for the purposes the government is alleging. Discussions over whether to release Assange's medical reports, including his family history, to the press. The defense and prosecution both agree that they should be withheld for privacy, but are making the case to the judge. The judge is speaking to members of the Press Association in court. We'll decide that issue at the end of today's proceedings. They are now discussing the defense's request for time between the end of the testimonies and closing arguments. It would be not to make an oral argument, but just to submit in writing if they were to get time to prepare. The other option, the judge says, is to make oral arguments on Thursday or Friday of the fifth week, 2 weeks from now. The prosecution says that it would be fine with written arguments and would ask for just 1 or 2 weeks. And this is where the court actually got pretty fiery first thing this morning. This was probably about 10 minutes into the court proceedings. The judge says, so prosecutor Vanessa Baratzer, she's the judge ruling over this case. She's pretty much just a concierge for the State Department, as we said like a million times. But the judge says this case has already gone on 18 months. The defense cannot ask for so much time. Your client is in confinement, to which Edward Fitzgerald artfully says back to her, if the court were to grant him bail, that would solve that problem. So before we continue, I just want to stop there to see if there's anything you'd like to add there or make mention of, Steve.
Well, first, it's pretty on brand that the prosecution would wait until 11 o'clock at night to drop off a 350-page plus bundle of information. Pretty disgusting on that end. In terms of like a delay in the process for this, yeah. I got to give it to Mr. Fitzgerald on that. Of course, it would be easier if Julian Assange was granted bail. We don't. At least I don't hold out much hope for that, but I also don't see how any other way is possible. Like, what the fuck are they going to do? Just keep him in Belmarsh until he expires? Like, I understand that may be part of the plan, but it's something that we should be trying to organize around. And maybe we can even hit up Kim.com for that, because he had a fairly decent plan for trying to get Julian released on bail. I think that I like this little exchange, at least as told by Mary Kostakidis. Fitzgerald arguing why he needs 4 weeks, including and includes in that argument as to why he needs some extra time for this. So now it's entered officially into the record again that the first time they were able to see Julian in person in 6 months was the day the hearing began. The judge was concerned that the defense would seek to enter in further evidence. Fitzgerald says if it's something dramatic, certainly. He says they haven't managed to deal with the superseding indictment, and part of their legal team will provide a submission on what they have managed to do. Judge concerned about finality before the U.S. election. That's interesting. Absolutely interesting, because it's been speculated that the reason that they were trying to rush this through was exactly because of that. But here we have some concrete proof of it. Fitzgerald arguing that probably won't be possible no matter who wins the election. Let's see, where did that go? That may impact the case depending on what the new president says about Julian. Says it's not something they can avoid. The judge agrees her decision won't be made until after the election, agrees they can have 4 weeks, but can't provide a date by which she will deliver judgment. At that point, they tried to pull up a video feed to read a statement. And I don't have exactly who wrote this statement in front of me, or at least Mary.
I have a name for you. It is Austin something. Jacob Austin, or Jacob Augustine. The defense is now reading a statement from Jacob Augustine, journalist at Der Freitag, in September 2011, when the German weekly published the article indicating that the Guardian's book release of password plus mirroring encrypted files could be put together to find the unredacted cables. That is over. I'm just scrolling Defense Assange right now.
Yeah. According to Mary, the audio has been absolutely terrible. She referred to a statement being read that nobody could hear, followed by the introduction of a witness no one could understand. So it looks like the tech problems that have been mostly avoided for the first 4 days of this week have been re-summoned. Somebody drew the pentagram the right direction on the floor this time, or something. I don't know. But they're back. Judge refused a decision on late submissions. Yeah, so one of the reasons we were late starting today is because the judge didn't even have the right bundle in front of her and hadn't studied the material properly, because she got it late too. Like,
so they have
what the
Defense Assange has this framed out really well. The prosecution is complaining about late evidence. Lewis says enough is enough. Defense Assange, I think this is editorializing because it's in brackets, says yes. The same prosecution which brought a second superseding indictment halfway through the case. And for me to add some editorial to that, a third superseding indictment on June 24th, 2020.
Well, that's the one they're talking about.
Is because that's the third superseding indictment. That's not the second one.
Right. So there was the original one, and then
Yeah.
the first superseding indictment, and this was the second superseding indictment.
Okay.
So it's a total of 3 indictments, but at least from the way that they're writing about it is they're counting the first one as the original one. Then there was a second indictment that was the first superseding indictment, and then there was the one in June that was the third indictment, but the second superseding one.
Because none of that is confusing at all.
It's a little bit. It's lawyery.
Right? And then we wonder why no one covers the trial.
Now you know why nobody likes lawyers.
So to fast forward a little bit here, the report includes Dr. Thomas, who the defense say directly contradicts the prosecution's argument on U.S. prison conditions. The judge is saying that she received the files from the defense late last night. She warned both parties previously about late evidence. A line must be drawn. Judge Breitzer, concierge of the State Department, says on file timing. These issues, U.S. prison conditions, have already been covered, so the defense submission will not be accepted. I would just like to say that apparently it's only good if the prosecution gets to introduce new evidence at the most inconvenient times, specifically to referring back to September 7th when Julian was arrested, and the new evidence for that got introduced into the court case, and then no additional time was given under this new superseding indictment for the prosecution to actually prepare once Julian was arrested for it, after not being able to meet with him for 6 months leading up to September 7th. So again, Judge Vanessa Breitzer is acting in favor of the prosecution, denying late evidence, even though the prosecution gets to essentially submit whatever they want, whenever they want. But we have Patrick Eller, wow, now taking the stand by remote video. And I don't want to have to only use Defense Assange for this, so I don't know if we maybe want to pick up with like Kevin Gastola or Mohammed or Mary for this exchange.
Yeah, so this is from Mary's feed from about a half an hour ago. Eller has served in the military, examined Jabber chat log regarding passcode hash and court-martial records about what they disclosed. I would imagine that means Chelsea Manning's court-martial. Was there use of hash cracking? No. How about on the computer related to it? No. Did it relate to a government computer regarding Nathaniel? I'm not entirely sure what that means. Maybe it's fleshed out a little bit more on another page, and I'll go look. But no indication that a passcode was used without an encryption key. Would that be sufficient? No. Let's see. Let me go look at Kevin's thread here, because he was on the ground. Does directly relate to Chelsea Manning's court-martial. And Kevin, I don't know. I don't even know if everybody watching this knows this or not, but Kevin Gastola kind of like how people started to know who he is because he was one of like maybe 2 or 3 total other people who covered Chelsea Manning's court-martial.
And really quick, while we're talking about him, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, please go and in your search bar type Shadowproof and subscribe to them. They have half of the subscribers somehow that A4A has, and I would love to change that and see them get twice as many as we do, if not 10 times, because Kevin does amazing work over there. So please share the Shadowproof account out as much as possible, because Kevin really deserves way more credit than YouTube's giving him right now, because they have been doing relentless coverage of this. this.
A little bit more background on Eller to kind of round this out. He served 20 years in the U.S. Army and was Command Digital Forensic Examiner for a program of more than 80 digital forensic examiners at U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command Headquarters in Quantico. Eller was asked to consider allegations in the indictment that Assange assisted Manning in cracking a password stored on U.S. DoD connected computers connected to classified secret internet protocol router network. The second allegation, as Eller understood, was cracking a password would allow Manning to, quote, log onto computers under a username that did not belong to her, and that such measure would have made it more difficult for investigators to determine the source of the disclosures. The third allegation, as Eller understood it, was that there was an agreement in an alleged conspiracy, more specifically that Manning provided a, quote, partial hash value asking if Assange knew how to assist in cracking it. Summers asks about the allegations. Did that tell you anything on its face about the use of or possible use that this hash cracking was going to be put to? No. Did it tell you anything about the computer to which it was related to? No, it didn't. Did it tell you it related to a government computer? No. Referring to the FTP account on Manning's computer, would she have been able to get to the rules of engagement for Iraq using that account? Eller says the FTP account would not have access to the T drive, so in that sense, no. Kevin editorializes here for a moment, saying he'll have rabid flashbacks to the Chelsea Manning trial throughout today. The judge didn't know what a SCIF was, and the witness took some time to state what this was an acronym for. I blurted the answer loudly at my laptop screen. That's fucking funny. Good for you, Kevin. So Summer says, so the code was never cracked. Eller says, no, it was not. And Summers says, was the discussion ever returned to cracking the code? Eller says, no, it was not. So right now what we're seeing is a complete evisceration of this conspiracy to commit computer intrusion charge that the U.S. government has levied against Julian Assange as a way to criminalize the most basic functions of investigative journalism. Andrew?
Yeah, sorry, no, I was going through and just liking all the tweets to get myself caught up on all these threads. But I just think it's hilarious how in that bajillion page prosecution bundle, they have no evidence of anything. Like none. Like the only evidence that they have is the absence of evidence. Like, they're like, we don't know what happened.
The evidence of absence.
So that's comical at best, the fact that the prosecution can't even show that an over 10-year-old charge actually happened with any type of evidence. I in Chelsea Manning's court case, I think the entire conversation came out in writing from the messages between Julian and Chelsea that they were trying to get access to video games and TV shows that they wouldn't otherwise have access to because the military doesn't allow them. So Chelsea was just trying to get some attaboys from the people that she was working with. So even if the evidence was there, the question would have been, well, was this used to access any classified information? No.
After the prosecution's witness yesterday, Blackwood,
Mm-hmm.
after it was established that James Lewis Megabrains expert witness was in fact not an expert, this is a fantastic witness for the defense to produce, because the prosecution does not have anyone remotely connected to computer forensics that they can call up, that they can have testify, because under oath they would have to admit that, well, no, there was actually no passcode cracking, and no, this conspiracy to commit computer intrusion charge is on its face bullshit, and they would have to answer no to all of the exact same questions that this defense witness is answering no to. So in terms of like the nuts and bolts of computer forensics and the steps that the defense needs to take to shoot holes into the conspiracy to commit computer intrusion charge. I can't think of anyone better than a fucking former army criminal investigator who has no reason whatsoever to have any love for Julian Assange or WikiLeaks. That's good shit.
So I'm interested here to see what line of questioning Lewis picks up when it's his turn.
Right?
Because at this point, it's kind of just settled. Like, they have no evidence. Nothing was ever used.
And he can't really go after this witness for not wanting to help the court and being an advocate for WikiLeaks.
Oh, he'll still try.
Oh, of course, he'll still
I just
try.
think it's funny to note here that in 2010, the computer was still running Windows XP.
Okay.
That was like the Windows 7 era, so they were 2 operating systems behind. I just think that that's funny. That was as
it's
Windows,
incredibly insecure too. But at that point,
yeah. That was after Vista had come out and failed, and then 7 came out, and people were like,
dude, some script kiddie could have hacked that fucking thing. You don't need no anonymous, no like mastermind fucking hacker. It was ancient by then and already was full of holes.
So you're saying you don't need to be a mega brain?
You don't? Mega brain.
Can you pull that picture up just in case people don't know what we're fucking rambling about?
Yes, Andrew. Yes, I can.
I love that picture. That's my favorite picture.
Oh boy, here we go. Open, you summon a bitch.
Time for the charmer. The mega
brain. Fuck. Application window, mega brain. There he is. There he is. A charming man with a mega brain. My God. He really does. He looks like one of those guys that has a collection of other people's faces that he has himself peeled off with a fucking like half sharp knife that he wears.
Do you think they're in his flat or are they at his house?
Well, they're probably at his flat. That's probably where he goes for comfort after he gets his ass handed to him in court.
So I was reading through real quick while we wait for more threads to populate. I was reading through that 4th day exchange again, where Lewis forgot everything. And Joel Smith wasn't there either. He didn't show up that day as well.
Johnny Bush League?
Yeah, Johnny Bush League showed up late that day, or didn't show up that day either. There's a specific note by Mohammed and by Kevin that there is no prosecution present in the room when court kicked off on the 4th day of the hearings. So I thought that was really cool because I was going back and I'm essentially pulling out of the highlights and sourcing all of the important material that came out of that first week. And I'm doing it for the 2nd and the 3rd week too. But I have the 1st week finished, and that 4th day was pretty intense going back through it because you see like a little talk of COVID, Summers walks in a mask, and then everyone notes that there's no prosecutors there. And then Lewis calls in like, I'm at the wrong house. And then Joel Smith, who is not present, calls Lewis over the phone to patch him in. And he's like, hey buddy, can you hear? So no one for the prosecution showed up on the 4th day. So I'm guessing that Johnny Bush League and Mega Brain were hanging out in the flat together trying on skin suits. So I think we have a little bit of a new narrative to go with on that one.
And James Lewis said, hey, do you like Phil Collins?
And then they fell asleep together and cuddled until the wee hours of the morning.
It's a little American Psycho joke for everyone at 10 minutes till 4 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. You're welcome.
So I thought that was really funny, just going back through there.
Let's pick back up on some of this because it's been 7 years since Chelsea's court-martial. I don't know how much of the audience remembers that or remembers those details. Certainly not as well as someone like Kevin Gostola, who covered it every day. So jumping back into the testimony, this is from Assange defense about 15 minutes ago. Eller, the government allegation that there was an attempt to gain anonymity is greatly undermined by the tracking system which identified users. Databases like the NetCentric Diplomacy Database and IntelLink could be accessed from any account on the computer, including local user accounts. But the account on the computer that the user logged into was not used in any way to identify the user to the database. Instead, access was tracked using IP addresses. Firstly, many databases were accessible to anyone with a CIPRNet connection. These databases did not require any additional login information or account-based access control. Access was not controlled with accounts. The cables and the detainee assessment briefs were databases that anyone with CIPRNet access could use without any further authentication or login at the time. If Manning had been able to access the FTP user account, it would not have given her access to the CID, any database where the war logs were held. If you were trying not to be traced, there were other means available to Chelsea Manning. The defense wants to unpack this. Again, establishes even with the FTP username, instead of her own personal login, downloading docs would have been traceable by IP addresses. Manning booted a Linux CD to access the SAM file in the first place before this Jabber chat to actually be anonymous. So she knew of ways to use the computer anonymously that did not require hash cracking, which she knew wouldn't anonymize her. It is early. In case anybody doesn't understand what FTP means in the chat, it means file transfer protocol. That's just a technical note if you are keeping notes or score at home.
Steve, I noticed while you were reading that you weren't making very good eye contact with me.
Are you trying to say that I'm a little Asperger-y this morning?
I'm just wondering if you've been tested.
I mean, I've had a number of tests ran on me, but I don't know if that's one of the specific ones. Looks like the defense has ran out of time, and we're moving on to Mega Brain.
That was a wonderful statement there. You were reading off Defense Assange, correct, for all those?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that literally just put everything out on the table for how that works. So that's wonderful. I'm interested to see what Lewis does here. We have Lewis kicking off. Lewis challenges Elmer's claim that the password was not cracked. Eller deduces from the conversations he's seen, saw no evidence that it was. Lewis says, but you don't have the evidence that it wasn't. So literally the joke that I made earlier is what Lewis is arguing in court.
The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. So if you guys don't know why I'm making that voice, there was a comic strip like 20 years ago called The Boondocks that was made into an animated series that featured some of the funniest people on the planet, including the late, great Charlie Murphy, who played a character called Ed Wunsler, and then Ed had a friend whose nickname was Rummy, and that was played by Samuel L. Jackson. And they would throw like actual Donald Rumsfeld quotes into this character's like description of events or reaction to events on a regular basis. That's the end of my story time for this round. Let's see.
Sorry, I'm literally tweeting out, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence.
Haven't seen anything from the good Kevin in about 20 minutes.
That's some very like George Bushian statements right there.
Yeah. Well, it
Like
takes
that,
a mega brain to know a mega brain, Andrew.
that's fair. That's very fair. So what position do you think Lewis is going to get demoted to after this? Like, do you think, like, because we talked yesterday about him getting put on paper duty, but I don't even know if he can do that after he thinks the absence of evidence shows that there's no evidence of
And
that.
it means he's qualified to be the U.S. Secretary of Defense. That's what it means.
Okay.
Oh, and somebody liked my Phil Collins joke. Thank you. I just went over to Twitter for a minute. Thanks.
So morning, everybody. This is a fun day.
Fucking A.
If anyone has questions, would like clarification on anything that's happened so far in court or where we're at today, please put it in one of our chats. We're pretty well informed about what's transpired over the last 2 years in this situation, so we can answer most things accurately, and if we don't, we'll probably just crack a joke. So okay, we got another exchange coming in from at Defense Assange 33 seconds ago. Lewis reading from Jabber Chats, Manning. Any good at IM hash cracking? He referring to who they potentially believe to be Assange. I don't know if it's actually been proven that it was. We have rainbow tables for IM. Manning sent back a hexadecimal string she found in a SAMS file or in a SAM file. Assange said, passed it through our IM guy. Any more hints about this IM hash? No luck so far. So Lewis literally saying in this exchange that they didn't crack the hash.
Yeah, that's essentially what just went down there. Let me refresh this and see if there's anything in the last couple of minutes.
If you want to see if there's someone, maybe Mary goes over that exchange.
Not really. 5 minutes ago, she had Eller explaining it was not possible to download films, etc., because Manning and others did not have administrator privileges. This is what she was trying to achieve. Lewis said, how do you know the password has not been cracked? Eller said, there's no evidence. And Lewis, yeah, that's not the same thing. Lewis, extract from Jabberlogs in your report, you say Nathaniel Frank was Julian Assange. Yes. And then that's when they start going through the messages between Nathaniel Frank and Chelsea Manning. But again, to reiterate, there was never any hash cracking. Like, that's been made perfectly clear on a couple of occasions now.
To the point that the prosecutor just read it in court.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he knows what any of those words mean. He probably was just like, oh, I gotta read this. So he read it and he's like, got him.
Can you tell me more about this Jabberwocky?
Can you explain to me what a Nathaniel is? Oh man, that's painful. I mean, I like the fact that the prosecution's so stupid that they'll admit in court that there wasn't a password cracked.
Well, and here's the thing. Earlier during the defense examination of Eller, they brought up these chats and they said, like, Mark Summers was like, so the code was never cracked. And Eller says, no, it was not. And Summers says, was the discussion ever returned to? And Eller says, no, it wasn't. So there's that exchange that Lewis just broke out is the only exchange about it in their entire chat history. So it was brought up once, discussed as something that they weren't able to do, and that was the end of the discussion. And that is the basis of the conspiracy to commit computer intrusion charge right there. That conversation that proves that they were unsuccessful in whatever attempt they made on hash cracking.
Well, again, to quote Lewis, where I want to get the exact word here. Who had it? Lewin challenges Elmer's claims that the password was not cracked. Eller deduced from the conversations that he's seen, he saw no evidence that it was. Lewis says, but you don't have evidence that it wasn't. So we're going back to some fucking Iraq war shit here. Figuratively, literally, metaphorically, and depressingly, in the way that the U.S. determines what evidence is.
I'm gonna have to go make some coffee here soon.
Okay,
giving you a heads up.
Okay, well, I'm gonna run out for a cigarette real quick then, if that's cool, before you make coffee.
I just got a comment on my Twitter that says Lewis will be demoted to filling up space in the nearest broom closet. It'll give him time to find new solvents to sniff.
So Assange defense 25 seconds ago. Lewis is running through a complex technical background of LM hashes and how encrypted passwords work. I'm just waiting for Julian, like one of the founders of the cypherpunk movement, to yell nonsense as this like 65-year-old mega brain is trying to explain the inner workings of encryption. Not that Julian would yell out about that, but I just think it's funny that while the cypherpunk is in court that can describe exactly how encryption works, they're keeping him behind a glass box instead of allowing him to say, well, this is what an LM hash is.
That happened in Lori Love's trial, too. The prosecution was trying to very poorly explain technical aspects of computer hacking, and they sounded like very, very confused lay people reading off of a paper, which is essentially what Lewis is doing.
So here to pick up with Mary Costaquitas, because this is literally what we were just saying. Lewis says, exact from the jabber logs in your report. You say Nathaniel Frank is Assange. Eller says yes. Lewis reads the exchange that we read and tweeted out that ends with no luck so far in regards to cracking the hash. Lewis asks LM. I'm assuming the question is, what is LM? Elmer says land management. Lewis says to create an LM hash, Windows converts the password. Lewis going through some complex Windows XP processes. Those complex Windows XP processes, man. Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
Do you know about LM hashes? Could you give us a...
Not this fucking early. I'm only one cup of coffee in, man. I can't even hardly spell my name right now. But yeah, I am aware of the concept most assuredly.
Okay. I'm just checking through.
We actually increased Josh's retainer to have him explain this complex shit on camera today. So that was a good investment.
But,
that worked out.
The same
ass.
and that Josh cannot let his other clients know how inexpensive he's doing it for us. So
shit, I'm making money. Damn, that's new to me.
There was a thing. I don't know if it'll be a thing again or not.
That may
Unfortunately,
have been Eric Lewis, to be fair, not Trevor Tim.
there was a music festival in Golden Gate Park every year called Hardly Strictly Bluegrass, and it was free music. They fucking like eccentric hedge fund billionaire named Warren Hellman put it together and prepaid in advance for like at least a decade after his passing, which I believe is this year or next year. That decade's up. But Steve Earle, who people may know from the song Copperhead Road, would play it every year. And somebody asked him, like, why do you do this? And why do you keep coming back year after year after year? And he was like, well, I mean, it's not for the carton of smokes and little deli sandwiches that Warren fucking offers everyone to come play here. We do it. It then went off to this like love of the music thing and blah 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 blah. But my point to telling you that story is that we're basically promising Josh a carton of smokes at some point.
Hey, I'll fucking take it, honestly.
Right? Oh man, let me see if there's been any new traction on the hearing. Let's see. Yeah, sure. 24 seconds ago from Assange defense. So let's come up here a little bit. Yeah. Following up on James Lewis's running through complex technical background of LM hashes and how encrypted passwords work, Lewis picks up on the phrase "at the time" from Eller's sentence. At the time, it would not have been possible to crack an encrypted password hash such as the one Manning obtained. Lewis wants to show him evidence to see if he changes his mind. So now we've got James Lewis suddenly developing a master's or PhD.
Yeah, those passwords are like Assange or Manning wouldn't have been able to crack that fucker. I mean, without like years of computing power, like years. Like, yeah, you can crack those now because it's fucking ancient, but it still takes a while.
So Captain Megabrain is trying to refute Eller's testimony that this encrypted password hash was cakewalk to hack. Like he's trying to provide evidence of that. Our own computer programming and forensics expert, Sleepy Josh, has said that would not be likely, that it would take years of computing power at the time in order for them to do that. Because Lewis has decided that the phrase "at the time" is some sort of like, I don't know, evidence of like weasel wording on the part of Eller. So he's trying to pick that apart.
Well, where's the evidence?
Right?
Like, I think that's... Oh, we got Echo. Where are we echoing from? Echo's gone. It was probably the bad Kevin.
Okay, we've got some more. Lewis is reading from Windows info that the system that warns it's possible to crack password hashes.
It is. I mean, it's not an impossibility, but the amount of time it would have taken back then would have been prohibitive.
If Lewis is reading from a Windows user manual about password cracking, I think we just won the case.
Dude, he's gonna remember that fucking internet, like that crappy like internet doctor or something that used to do those shitty XP tutorials on like infomercials.
Yeah,
Like that's what this guy reminds me of.
yeah.
He's reading over
This
here.
is look, man. This is a lot like taking medical advice from Bill Gates. Okay,
James Lewis.
I want to make that perfectly clear. What James Lewis is attempting to do right now is to be Bill Gates and give medical advice. And now that I've brought Bill Gates into this, I'm gonna put Megabrain's picture back up on the screen to see if anybody notices some frightening similarities. Megabrain, there you are. So tell me if you think that there may be something a little Gatesy about this guy, or if it's just me.
He's a little Gatesy. He needs
Andre?
he needs to have more of a scary grin. Gates has kind of a
Right.
creepy grin.
Well, that was his headshot. Like Gates
Doesn't seem nearly connected enough to Johns Hopkins and the World Health Organization to be Gatesy to me. Like, just because you have a mega brain doesn't mean you're a genocidal maniac sterilizing most of the third world population. Because that takes a whole different kind of charming mega brain.
That's fair.
But I'm typing a tweet out real quick. I'm trying to give a shout out to the Windows XP user manual here real quick for helping out the prosecution.
Liam Balbrick in the chat is like, James Lewis Megabrain, call him by his name. That's funny. Confirmation that my analogy about James Lewis giving testimony on how computers work is like Bill Gates giving you medical advice.
It
Thank
really
you.
is.
I appreciate that. I do. I work hard to be able to come up with these analogies out of fucking thin air. I don't plan shit. I really don't.
It's so early, I forgot how to spell the word
God help
science.
us when you start planning shit.
Well, that's what the ASMRs are.
I've got to start doing.
Yeah, we've got to set aside a couple hours to get that. Going.
Oh, Steve. When we were at the
If I'm not as excited as you are, will you be disappointed?
yes.
Okay.
When
Yes,
we were-
Andrew?
When we were at on Wednesday, the people from Popular Resistance brought us like an anti-war pamphlet, and it is a description of U.S. false flags set to prose. There's literally a 1.5-page poem about 9/11.
Oh, neat. I want to see that.
I forgot to tell you all week, and I don't even know if I have the paper still.
You fucking son of a bitch.
I'm sure Christine has them. If I don't, then it might be tucked in my car.
I will.
It's in my center console of my car, not to let the NSA know where they can find it, but
I'm going to make you get a tattoo just so I can carve it back off of your body.
I have one.
It's fucked up. God damn, Steve.
It's been a dark week.
Yeah, I get it. That's fucked up, though.
Anywho. Jesus Christ.
So Lewis says
So,
here,
in case, if anyone's wondering, yes, in fact, if you laughed at that, you are going to hell with me.
we'll all be in a camp together first, though, so at least we can laugh some more. So Mary Costakitis says, Lewis continues, Microsoft no longer supports the LM hash because it is easier to break because it's not case sensitive and other reasons.
Yeah, because it's been like 10 years.
Yeah, making it easy to crack with 7 characters. Now quoting from another article that provides the method used to crack hashes, including in Windows 10. That article is from 2016. Lewis is trying to get Eller to say it was possible. So
and look, go ahead, make your point.
no, you're probably going to say the same thing.
Well, no, I mean, this is just dumb. Like, it doesn't even help if you're able to do something 6 years down the road with the rapid advances in technology, as opposed to like 2009, 2010, when this was taking place. Wasn't it like 2007 anyway, when Manning was accessing all of this?
Yep, 2009, 2010.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it, when you're trying to distort reality to suit your own purposes, that's a sign of a psychological disorder, not good lawyering. I want to make that perfectly clear. That is bending reality to shape your own sociopathic aims. That's shitty.
Could you share that Mega Brain picture with like Jimmy Dore and shit, like with the stand-up comedians that
Yeah.
do commentary? Because I'm sure that we
You
can
got to
get
you
them
got to
to
show. Isn't Lee Camp on soon?
Sunday, I think. This Sunday or next Sunday, Steve said.
Yeah, I haven't been able to get a hold of him since he initially confirmed that he would do the show. Uh he said he was checking his schedule about whether it would be this Sunday or next Sunday. I already booked pasta for next Sunday. So I'm either gonna have 2 guests in 2 hours, or I'm going to have to
Have them on together. That would be fun.
I don't really do panels on the show.
It's not a panel. It's
You really
just,
don't. Yeah, that's 3 people having a discussion. That's a panel. Yeah. Yeah.
Did I freeze? I'm pretty sure I froze.
Yeah, you did. You
Okay.
did. It's okay. Nobody wanted to hear your fucking rebuttal anyway, pal.
Oh man.
Man, you're ornery this morning, Steve.
Hey, this is
You don't know what I've been going through.
so.
Oh.
This is as of 6 minutes ago. Lewis reading from a Microsoft announcement about hashes. The LM hash is old and weak system because the password length is only 14 characters. Breaks into 2 separate files. So if your password's less than 7 characters, it should be a breeze to crack the penetrative attack. He asks Eller about the sentence at the time. Would it have been impossible? Better to say very difficult, or might not have been possible, or still say impossible. Eller says, in 1999, from a Windows Microsoft announcement, there was a patch for this vulnerability that makes it computationally impossible to use brute force when a system key has been applied. Lewis says, right. Well, whether then the debate is an issue with you on this, Manning and Assange thought they could crack the password and agreed to try. Eller says it's never said whether. Eller said it never said whether the hash, if it was from. Sorry. Eller said it never said where the hash, if from, was from, and it didn't get to finish I didn't get to finish my previous answer. Eller continued that the government witness in the Manning court case Marshall said that it was not feasible. So again, Mega Brain QC Lewis backed himself into a corner, got hit in the mouth. I think I hear Dobbins calling in right now, trying to get him out of court for the rest of today, but I'm not entirely sure yet. So let's see. Aware that Assange described himself as a fantastic hacker, alleged to be said as by teenager, Eller says no. Do you agree even the strongest encryption can be cracked by an expert hacker? Yes. Eller wants to add a comment, but Lewis moves on. So all evidence literally says no, that this was not cracked. The U.S. in Chelsea Manning's court-martial said it's not feasible. And this is coming from a military forensics computer scientist.
We live in a cartoon.
This will only identify a computer and not a user. Eller says correct. And on a computer, you can log on as a domain user or a local user. Eller again says yes. Evidence that Manning's trial was that she logged in on a user in her name? Yes. In fact, the profile contained forensic evidence used against.
Brr.
Oh, where'd I cut out at?
Evidence used against.
In fact, the user profile contained forensic evidence used against her at that trial. That is correct. So correct me if I'm wrong here, Josh, but I'm pretty sure that Lewis just again asked an ignorant line of questioning that ultimately makes the defense's case.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I don't even know if he knows what he just asked.
Of course he doesn't. He's a mega brain.
So for anyone following along at home, Lewis essentially just said that all the evidence shows that all of the information, or that the information was accessed from Chelsea Manning's username. In fact, the user profile contained forensic evidence used against her at trial. That is correct. Evidence at Manning's trial was that she logged on as a user in her name. Yes. So, according to this line of questioning here by the prosecution, they have no idea about technology. So I would like to thank
to be fair, most lawyers don't. I know this for a fact. So
am I interpreting this part wrong here? Because I don't want to be wrong about this.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's
okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to say they hacked something to log in as a different user, but they didn't fucking log in as a different user. He just proved the defense's argument for sure.
Right. He starts at the beginning saying an IP will identify a computer and not a user, and that on the computer you can log in either as a domain user or a local user, which I believe a domain user would be like a remote access, if I'm right, Josh.
I mean, it's with Windows, you're pretty much always logging in remotely. I'd be surprised if they allowed local logins on those machines, but it doesn't matter anyway.
Right. And then evidence.
Go start my second round of coffee. I'll be back shortly.
Okay. So literally, the prosecution here doing everybody a huge favor, pointing out how the logins were under Chelsea Manning's name and not a separate profile. So that was
which means it was definitely a network login.
Right. So this is to Eller. Manning would have never used a password hash to exfiltrate files to non-governmental computers and transmit to WikiLeaks. She had a Linux CD that allowed her to access files and bypass Windows security features. We know this was done based on the SAM file. James Lewis, lead prosecutor, asks Eller if he agrees that Manning and Assange thought they could crack the password and agreed to attempt to crack it. Eller said a hash was provided and they said they had rainbow tables for it. It never said where the hash was from. I could use some corned beef hash. Like all this talking is getting me ready for breakfast after this. But while I have a moment here, in the description down below, there is 6 different calls to action. I'm not going to run through all of them, but they are all super important. If you are someone that has already done all of these calls to action, do them again. Please continue to put this information out. A lot of this stuff, like to the Justice Department and to Her Majesty's prisons, can be pulled via a Freedom of Information Act request. There are specific emails in those lists that you can request FOIA for. So that way later down the road, when people say, hey, we would like to see all of the complaints about the major technical issues that were going on in court, a FOIA request can pull those up. So please, 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 please send complaints about the previous day's proceedings with the technical issues that are happening today, as spoken by Mary Kostakidis, to the British, I think it's like the abysmal technological incompetence is what I called it. That call to action, there's a call to action to pardon, which submit that like a million times. That has the form, the phone number, and the email. And there's others. There's the Reporters Without Borders one. There's one specifically for the Department of Justice, just sharing general information with them. But this morning, just so everybody knows and can be on the same page, because we got around 60 viewers between all the platforms, there was a discussion earlier about how court is going to proceed, and we will have a final answer later today. But it does appear that there will definitely be a fourth week. So next week will be a full week of trial. And then depending on what the judge decides, we could see this go as late as the end of October, or potentially beginning of November. But Vanessa Baraitster did say she wanted to have this completed before the presidential election. I don't know about you, right? So everybody watching, if you remember, they can't do an extradition for political offenses. So wouldn't Vanessa Baraitser questioning the conditional changes from administration to administration show that this is inherently political? Like, wouldn't just the line of questioning about how the president... What?
So that's a good point.
Yeah, like that, like they just threw out the whole case, and I hope that I'm going to make sure I grab those questions from all of the sources that we follow and send them to somebody. But that question shows that this is inherently political, and that should be the entire, not the entire statement, but that should be included in the defense's final statements. Because if the judge is willing to question the politicalization of this court trial, doesn't that show that it is political? Like, am I missing something here, Josh?
No. I don't think they are, because, you know, we live in a fucking cartoon. But yeah, it's they're just blatant about it. Like, they don't give a fuck.
It's like how the Queen has said, like, oh, I can't rule in on political cases. I wonder if she's going to rule in when her family members get caught up trafficking children.
Yeah, we've got a statement in our chat from Liam. It's why is a British judge so concerned about a U.S. election? I mean, it's cartoonish.
It's because it's inherently political. And everybody knows it, and that's not allowed to happen because it's political. And I hope that that is the first thing out of the defense's mouth is, Your Honor, you asked about the changing tide in the American political process and how a change of administration would affect this case. Doesn't that show political intent on part of the prosecution?
All right, I'll be back in like 1 minute. I gotta get more coffee.
I'm gonna be here all by myself.
Only for like a minute. My house is small. Right back.
I'll yell if I need you. I need an adult. Eller continued, the government's own expert witnesses in the court-martial stated that there was not enough for them to actually be able to do it. This was in the court-martial transcript, referring to the Chelsea Manning case. I'm actually really excited if and when Kevin joins us, Kevin Gastola, the good Kevin, to talk about this, because he has followed Chelsea's case as deep as anybody, if not deeper than most, even that follow it. So in response to this critical answer, highly relevant to whether there is any substance on the computer crime charge, Lewis came back with, are you aware that Assange publicly boasted that he is a fantastic hacker? Lewis made an abstract statement about how the strongest hacker can sometimes break even the strongest encryption, and scrambled on to the next line of questioning. So Lewis literally trying to duck, weave, dip, and dodge here in the dark. And I think it'll be fine. I think Edward Fitzgerald or Summers, when they step up to re-examine here at the end, is going to ask some basic questions, not reading from a Windows user manual, or maybe they will, about how easy it would be to get into this.
Those fucking manuals are worthless too. I mean, just to add that.
Oh man, Richard Medhurst is going around posting the Mega Brain picture.
Is he? Hell yeah. Oh, God bless you, Richard Medhurst.
Oh, great buddy of ours.
I love that guy, man. He's really grown on me. Charming. That's my favorite part of it. Charming. With a mega brain. Like, who the hell... did he write that himself? Like, who the hell wrote that?
Dude, it was probably him. He was probably like, I'm going to get all the jobs. Like, you know what? None of these lawyers are charming with a mega brain as he proceeds to yell at a judge for 3 weeks in court.
It wears the lotion. Jesus Christ.
Oh, man. So I just tagged a lot of the stand-up comedians in that one. I hope they get a chance to see it. James Lewis QC, a charming man with a mega brain. I'm pulling it up just because it just makes me laugh. Where am I?
If you look at it too many times, he's gonna come and take your
Well,
face.
so if you notice in this picture, he's making eye contact.
But I don't know. He looks like a fucking psychopath. Like, he's got that.
Yeah.
He's got the. Yeah. It's.
He's got that, like, I watch you when you sleep and you don't look.
Right. What are you wearing?
And, like, I love how he just recently started graying. So the top of his head is like a nice, fake brown color, and then those like gray roots coming in.
Hey, now. You're talking to a guy who's getting some gray, so.
No, my family has a history of dying with black hair, so.
Mine's actually really dark. Everyone else in my family, by my age, is like white hair, and I'm just now starting to get a couple here and there, and that's it.
I mean, that's good though.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining. Just giving you shit because I'm an old man.
This goes back 14 minutes. I started to read this once, but I think I didn't. But if anything, it'll get us caught up. Eller quoting from a Microsoft 1999 document.
Those were, oh God. That era of Microsoft manuals was the fucking worst too.
This is literally a battle of Microsoft user manuals in the middle of a court case.
You can't get more fucking cartoonish than that as a nerdy tech dude. Like, that's the most cartoonish thing to me.
I could see Lewis like frantically thumbing through his Windows user manual trying to figure out what page it's on. So Eller quoting from a Microsoft 1999 document that says they have made a change that makes it impossible. Bingo! Lewis responds by saying that he doesn't want to argue with him. But it's not him, it's Microsoft, adding that the court-martial found that there would not have been enough anyways. Lewis wants a win. He asked if Julian Assange was a superb hacker and if a great hacker could crack anything. Lewis says Manning used her own account, which contained forensic evidence used against her on the trial. Lewis reads from a court-martial transcript the location where she found the cables. Lewis asking whether the file transfer protocol account could have been used to hide the activity on your own account. He says yes. Lewis says Manning accessed the documents on her own account, but if she had used the FTP account, she could have accessed the documents in a way that would not have been visible. And Eller says it would have been visible. It would have been visible on the computer itself. Lewis says, in terms of whether the file transfer protocol account would have been useful for other purposes, your report says that it is common for soldiers to crack administrative passwords to download other material.
That is actually the
No
local
idea what
admin the local admin account. Yes, that would allow you to access to get admin rights basically on the local box, but that wouldn't help them get any more material on the network.
Right. It would help them to be able to download movies and videos and
Yeah,
video
it's.
games.
I mean, it's. I don't
Right.
even why they're. I don't even know why they're bringing that shit up.
Because Lewis is sticking to the script, Josh.
Jesus Christ, these people are fucking
Come on.
incompetent.
It's hilarious. They're literally having a battle of Windows user manuals, while at the same time, Lewis is making his own case, like making the case for the defense about how Manning didn't crack a password to access the documents, literally going as far as to say Manning accessed the documents on her account.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't. It's like why are you asking these things? It makes no fucking difference.
I mean, I'm just
I
glad that the
think
prosecution
I
is
think
so
he's just
ignorant.
trying to confuse the fucking judge, personally.
They are. They are. So we have a question in the chat. What are you missing from the case on the judge's behalf? Is there a £2 million? Is £2 million and a free trip to a P3D0 island somewhere in the Greek Isles? Let me see. If you guys have questions in the chat, please let us know. If you're watching and you would have any information you would like to know about the court case, about Julian's situation leading up to this.
I do have one question. I kind of
Yeah.
answered it in our chat, but this is from Martin K. O'Connor. That's what I thought. Because his question was, hold on. So is the consensus that Biden would be a better result for Julian? And I pretty much said no. I mean, it's.
So that's actually something that we can explore here for a minute if Steve would like, but I have to use the restroom real quick, so I will read it and turn it over to him. We had earlier Judge Vanessa Baratzer specifically asked if, and I'll just read it, what impact would the U.S. presidential election have on your case? Just that line of questioning shows that this is inherently a political case. Fitzgerald says there could be some impact. Much of what we say about Mr. Trump personally goes to why this was initiated, and that it will all remain. Much of what we say about the U.S. prison system will remain, but it is systemic. But we do feel the situation would be worse if Trump were to win. So I will turn that over to you, Steve, to answer why and give your perspective, and I will be right back.
Mute.
You're muted, buddy.
God damn it. The last quote that we have on record about Julian Assange from one Joseph R. Biden goes back to like 2012, where during the same 72-hour period, Biden, Mitch McConnell, and a handful of other leading Republicans and Democrats in Congress all got the memo that you're supposed to call Julian Assange a high-tech terrorist. So we did. And the attitude from everyone I've heard go on record about Julian Assange within Biden's entire campaign is one that is right in line with Bill Barr, Mike Pompeo, certainly Donald Trump. There's there's no good guy in this scenario. There's no winning team for Julian in this scenario. The major difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden is the difference between overt fascism and covert fascism. Although Biden's doing a pretty terrible job at being covert in his fascism. Everything that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks have helped expose, war crimes, waste, fraud, and abuse perpetrated by the U.S. military and corporations that are either extensions of the U.S. military or certainly partners to a degree with the U.S. government. All of those, that's who's backing Joe Biden. Like the military industrial, 500 national security professionals just endorsed Joe Biden. Are you going to try and tell me that Joe Biden would be a friendlier president to Julian Assange or WikiLeaks or public disclosure outlets in general? They just made public disclosure outlets terrorists in the 2020 NDAA. Do you think Biden's going to overturn that? Fuck no. He's going to find more categories of people to label terrorists so that the only people who aren't terrorists in the next 4 to 8 years are going to be people who unquestionably parrot the narrative and who keep their fucking heads down and don't ever try to take a stand for anything like a free press or free speech or basic civil and human rights and liberties. There's no there yeah, there's no good guy here. There's no win here. I do see a question in my chat right now from George. Are British politicians starting to sweat under the charge that freedom of journalism is on trial, or is the Assange trial not getting public disclosure? Part of the biggest problem with these proceedings, George, is that access to the cloud video feed has been removed entirely by Judge Vanessa Baratzer. This is one of the things that Action for Assange fought really hard for and had a couple of calls to action that people really stood up and participated in. And we had originally got the cloud video feed for NGO observer groups like Reporters Without Borders, Amnesty, and something like 38 other organizations were supposed to observe this trial. Now it's down to a couple dozen people in an office building or with remote access to this cloud video feed, all of whom are journalists, all of who are supporters of at least a free and open press, if not Julian Assange personally. So the coverage that is coming out in the mainstream press is coming out secondhand based on basically what we're doing right now.
If I remember right, Katya's Compass was tweeting about it, but I think they did let one journalist in, and he's like licking the boots of the fucking judge, man. Like,
yeah,
and I think that's a British reporter.
Yeah. The one mainstream journo that is in the room is there at the behest of like GCHQ. So to return to your question, no, there's very limited public disclosure about what's going on. There's been more lines of print dedicated to the quote unquote outburst that Assange gave on Tuesday or Wednesday of the first week, and more column inches dedicated to the fact that current members of parliament from around the world and former heads of state, including Brazilian President Lula, have signed an open letter demanding his release. There's been column inches dedicated to that, but hardly any dedicated to the actual trial, which is a huge fucking problem. And Martin O'Connor says Rebecca Vincent reporting no decision on the extradition until January. That's correct. that was discussed earlier this morning when the defense was lobbying for some more time to prepare their closing statements. Vanessa Baraitser had to admit that she would not be able to return a decision before the U.S. election, but that the U.S. election and that time frame was impacting this particular hearing, which, is Andre so astutely pointed out, proves that this is a political trial. Welcome back.
Thanks, buddy. Can I take a swing at the one question?
Yeah.
So in court, and I know Steve just talked about this, and I asked the question, but I want to just recap anyway, so everyone knows where we're coming from. Vanessa Baraitser asked about the impact of the U.S. election. Fitzgerald says essentially that it would be bad if Trump is reelected for this situation. And I want to just point out Biden's a trash panda. And that's an insult to trash pandas, like very big insult, because I have 2 of them and they're very cute. But the reason I think it would be most detrimental if either of them wins is because of the way that the media frames a lot of these issues, where you have Steve was talking about the news stories that are being ran. Two of the big ones are like Steve pointed out, the presidents and politicians and things around the world, the 100-some that said stop this extradition. That story is getting a lot of traction, as well as the pardon story about Dana Rohrabacher meeting with Julian Assange. And the Dana Rohrabacher story about the pardon in particular is getting framed as, well, Trump wanted to use this to debunk Russiagate, that he was offering Julian a pardon if he revealed his sources. Julian would never reveal his sources. It is an open policy of WikiLeaks to never reveal sources. But in that framing, right, that the mainstream media so horribly puts out, instead of talking about how he should be pardoned and doesn't have to reveal his sources, they basically try to say that Donald Trump's doing this so that way he can get information about Seth Rich out of Julian. Or not Seth Rich, because the mainstream media would never say that name, but to get the source of the leaks, the exfiltration from the DNC. And Trump is someone who will always bend down and lick the boot. What?
What?
I don't know. I thought I heard you say something. But Trump's someone that'll always bend down and lick the boot to avoid being called a Russian puppet. You can see that most specifically with the false flag attacks in Syria that WikiLeaks proved. So it would be rather interesting because of the fact that I don't think Trump, no matter how much pressure short of going to his rallies, will pardon Julian. But that pressure is not going to alter in the mainstream media. So I think that the Russiagate smears are the biggest thing in people's minds. And then if you look at the document with all the politicians, the majority of whom they highlight, not who signed, but who they highlight are South American presidents, former presidents, and what have you. And these are the same media institutions that for years now have ran socialism bad, Venezuela enemy, things like that. So in leading with, hey, 100 and some leaders from around the world want Julian freed, here's the names of 3 of them from South American countries, it frames it as if it is the bad socialists that want Julian free. And Trump,
these dirty totalitarian commies are the only people that want to free Julian Assange. Fuck that, dude.
Right.
They don't talk about the what is it? The EU Parliament group that signed their own statement demanding release. They don't talk about the Australian ministers of parliament or the handful of UK ministers of parliament.
Or all of the unions in the UK that have come out and supported Julian.
Local city councils in Australia. There's also oh god, I think it was the entire Belgian parliament voted unanimously on a statement demanding release. Like it's, you know, but of course, if you can make hay out of seeing fake commies under every fucking nook and cranny, yeah, that's what the U.S. media is there to do.
While the United States has a Stalinistic court trial going on against a publisher.
You know, this didn't even happen in Stalin's Russia, where foreign non-native journalists and publishers were brought in for a show trial. Like, this is beyond Stalin's Soviet Union. This is beyond anything the Chinese Communist Party has done. Like, every fucking perceived enemy of fucking dick waving freedom to the US has not done what the US and the UK are attempting to do to a journalist and publisher. The next time somebody brings up a quote unquote socialist country and how they repress freedom there, this is something you can point to and say, look, not even the CCP or North Korea or any of our other fucking go-to bad guys have treated journalists and publishers the way that the US and the UK currently are.
So we have 27 minutes of update from Defense Assange. And this is actually pretty interesting because Lewis continues to discredit his own position, rather daftly, if I do say so myself. Lewis, reading from the Manning trial transcripts, working to establish the above, cites an 8,300-page report within the appendix that shows the massive scale of material in this case. Lewis on program wget with Manning's profile was found in Manning's profile, a script to automate downloading, lots of discussions of what wget is in Manning's trial. Lewis inserts a line of questioning, and he says, the use of Manning's profile was used to provide used to prove what she had done. So the use of Manning's profile was used to prove what she had done. Eller, yes. If you use the same computer with a FTP, so a file transfer protocol user account, you could hide that activity from your domain user account. That is correct. Access to the SIPR net for the file transfer protocol user account. Yes, this statement says it does not require any login details. Is there any forensic evidence from the the file transfer protocol user account that would not be available on an image of Chelsea Manning's user account? No, it would be available on the computer. Lewis, the defense argument is one reason she would want to access the FTP account is to download video games and similar programs. Eller says yes. Lewis continues, you said it could be assumed that the FTP account had administrative privileges. How did you know that? Or how do you know that? Eller says local accounts tend to have admin privileges. Lewis says, but you don't know, and we said it didn't. Eller says, I don't see how you could say it didn't. Lewis says, if it didn't have local admin privileges, it could not have been used to install programs or computer games. Eller says that is correct. So Lewis says, so it's essential to know that. The end of cross-examination.
Real quick, I want to put something up on the screen. This just got posted about a minute ago from the Committee to Defend Julian Assange. This is live in front of the courthouse right now with their fairly well-attended demonstration and some very nice chalk artwork on the street right there.
So we have started lunch, just so you know.
In front of the Old Bailey. Excellent.
According to 11 seconds ago, while the defense is conferring about the re-examination. This was a great day for the defense. I just want to throw that out there, that the prosecution literally did the defense's work today.
We have another question from George in my chat. Is Pompeo the driving force behind Assange's persecution? If not, who? Pompeo is just another member of the permanent unelected state who is trying to destroy Julian Assange. This goes back to at least 2010. Key figures in the Obama administration, as well as members of Congress of both parties, both parties, and most of the entrenched national security bureaucracy all want Julian Assange off the table. They all want WikiLeaks off the table. This is an ongoing witch hunt that doesn't see party line.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the Cowboy Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, who was the one that originally filed the first indictment for the conspiracy to commit computer intrusion charge.
Yeah, pretty early on too.
Yeah, and I don't know who did the second round of the 17 indictments.
Barr.
If that was Barr, okay. And then it was Barr that re-released the new June 24th superseding indictment. So it actually, yes, it is Pompeo who's called Julian a hostile non-state intelligence agent, essentially, and WikiLeaks as a hostile non-state intelligence actor. But it was Jeff Sessions who started the prosecution, and then it was William Barr. And I believe it was in the first week in Eric Lewis's testimony, if I remember rereading it correctly, where he had introduced statements from Obama era like lifers in the Justice Department that said you cannot prosecute Julian Assange, and that Sessions and Barr went ahead with it anyways against the direction of some members in the Justice Department. So it is inherently a political trial. We know that Trump was literally trying to extort a source out of Julian. Julian, being such a badass, said, no, I'm not going to tell you who did any of this. Like, I'm not revealing the name of my source. You have a First Amendment, you can use it. So I think that's a
direct quote, by the way. Kim.com disclosed this a while back, that even when when offered the chance to basically trade his integrity for freedom, he went, no, they have a First Amendment, they can figure this out, they're welcome to use it. Give me just a moment.
Which, for a man who's been tortured for almost a decade, that's some fucking gall. And I would be proud of anyone who would even be able to last a decade in the situation that he has, let alone continue to fight as vigorously and ruthlessly as he has against this. So I think that that's always important to point out here.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to do it. I mean, I'm being honest.
Right, no, for sure. And that's why when we go to these news outlets, like for media days and stuff like that, literally as we're yelling to them in the megaphone, it's pivotal to ask, like, who in this building would be willing to face 3,500 days of arbitrary detention to defend the First Amendment? Like, who in this building would be willing to spend over 510 days in solitary confinement inside of Belmont prison?
The guy's facing 175 fucking years and still won't give up his source, dude. That's like, I don't know of any journalist that's ever done that. Period. That's a lot of years.
I'm sorry if you can hear my keyboard. I was typing in the chat real quick.
That's fine. I need more coffee. I'll be right back.
Okay. I'm just reading through the chat here. Again, we can kind of do this AMA style if anybody has any questions. Please let us know. Today is a much better day in court than Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we were going over very personal, very intimate medical details about Julian. It was a lot to get through. Literally yesterday, it was almost too much having to read through those statements. So I would just like to thank everybody that sat through all that with us, because that was a rough time, to say the least. But we are currently on lunch break in court. Just in case anyone would like to get caught up on what has transpired in court today, the judge has basically said that her ruling will not come out until after the election, most likely. Could be all the way until January, just depending on the time frame. We will have at least another week. So this is going a week longer than expected, of witness statements and cross-examination. So that's something that we have to unfortunately look forward to. Vanessa Breitzer facetiously told Fitzgerald this morning that we don't want to give you more time. It's been 18 months. Your client's still in confinement. To
Hey,
which,
it's Kevin.
Hey, actually, I will ask you first about this then, what I was kind of just rambling here about.
Morning, Kevin.
Earlier,
Morning.
how is everything going for you, buddy?
I mean, it's like being right back at Fort Meade during 2013, being at the trial. I'm hearing all this evidence, and I'm like, where did this come from? It's all the same. It's the same exact, except they're like a hip hop artist doing a remix. They're basically like reversing and switching it up, and they're contradicting their own forensic expert.
It's like we moved from Clerks to a Talking Heads video, and it's same as it ever was, all over again. It's fucking it's cartoonish, Kevin Gastola. It is highly cartoonish.
So I do want to talk about the stuff that they mentioned about Chelsea's case, but first I do want to bring up one of the first big things that happened in court today, and this is kind of just your opinion of this statement. This is according to the defense Assange account. The judge says that this case has already gone on for 18 months. The defense cannot ask for so much time, and that your client is in confinement, to which Edward Fitzgerald said, if the court were to grant him bail, that would solve that problem. So before we get into the Chelsea Manning evidence, I would just kind of like your opinion on that, because I thought Fitzgerald gave a really good answer to Bracer's facetiousness.
Yeah, she's, she ultimately she didn't actually act against the defense. So I'll just state up top that the defense got what they wanted. They made it clear multiple times, and at first she fought them, but they kept saying, we don't have the personnel, we don't have the time, we don't have the resources to prepare closing arguments and to do them basically the following week after all the witnesses are going to wrap. So just so people know about the timeline and what we expect, and I'll get back to your thing from the defense Assange account, but we expected to have the last witness on October 2nd. And then the next week, there'll be nothing at this point, because she just ruled that the defense can have 4 weeks to put together closing arguments. And then the prosecutors will have 2 weeks after that to respond to whatever the prosecution submits to the judge. And then the defense will have 72 hours to reply. And then there will be a hearing that happens, I believe. I think it was decided there will be a hearing. And so to your question about this thing, it was good. I mean, she's been invoking Julian Assange's well-being very cynically, because she doesn't care. He's still in the jail. And, it's up to, and, he knows he's not getting out. And if you wanted the defense to speed things up, I'm quite certain that Julian Assange would tell his lawyers to go faster. He's saying that he trusts his team to put together this defense properly and to see this to the end. and do proper closing arguments. I mean, I don't think you want to waste time and just cobble something together in 24 hours for the judge. That wouldn't be helpful to him, and I'm not sure she would take those seriously.
So I really appreciate that. We did have another exchange in court where Vanessa Baretzer was talking about the political implications of the presidential election. Yes. And how it could affect this case. Do you think that her asking that question in particular amongst everything that's come out in court, could literally show how this is a political trial?
Yeah, no, I think I'm going to actually be more charitable, and you might disagree with my answer here, but I think she doesn't understand U.S. politics, and she doesn't really know what's going on. So I think she was legitimately asking if it makes a difference if the U.S. election ends up with Biden elected or Trump elected. I thought Fitzgerald had a good answer for this. I'm not sure that you know what his answer was, but I got it down, and I even shared it. And his answer was that, essentially everything's pretty much set. Like, the outcome doesn't have much bearing on this case because most of the arguments are about how the prosecution originated in the Trump administration and the argument that it was launched as a political prosecution. So whether Trump loses or not doesn't really change the arguments that have been made. And also, whether Trump wins or not doesn't change the way someone would be treated in U.S. prisons when they're brought to the U.S. And so there's not a lot, maybe for us as who hear all of these partisan arguments, we think there's some big difference between Biden and Trump. Maybe you don't, but honestly, the administration of government isn't going to change that much depending on whether Biden or Trump is president. It's basically almost the same case if Biden is president.
We actually had someone ask that question in the chat earlier, and I used as an example the 500 former national security officials who just endorsed Joe Biden like yesterday as an example of why it really doesn't matter who gets elected. What matters is continuity of government, and that's exactly what the U.S. has in terms of the permanent unelected class of bureaucrat and or leadership that is really the driving force behind the persecution of Julian Assange.
Have you seen that clip that I've been sharing, the photos of Leon Panetta laughing it up at the spying operation against Assange? And
I went off on a pretty good rant based on that the other week. Yeah.
He's effectively, in my view, he's aligned himself with centrist Democrats. So yeah. He's not. He was an Obama administration appointee. He doesn't come from Trump, and this is what we're hearing.
So I did want to open the floor to you, Kevin, to talk about, because you know better than absolutely anyone else that I would even be able to ask about this, the evidence from Chelsea Manning's court case. Because to me, from what I see, it looks like Prosecutor Lewis laid out anything the defense would have to even say about it, is going so far as to show and point out that the evidence used in court came directly from Chelsea's user profile and not from a separate one. So could you kind of unpack that evidence for us and what it would mean for the court itself?
Yeah, so I have to just say that this is probably one area where I'm least equipped to talk because I don't have the kind of technical knowledge that comes with like talking about all the different things that are related to encryption and hacking. But what I do understand is what the government's claims are and what they're saying happened in this case. And I know, that the basic claim is that there was an agreement to crack a password hash and that existed. And when we had Patrick Eller take the stand, he essentially says, in fact, I'll just read this. This is something that we don't get in the courtroom because the judge won't allow these witnesses to make their own statements to set things up for us as people who are following the proceedings. But I'll just tell you what he very clearly had to say. I just have to find it. I mean, he basically laid out that. Okay, I was asked to consider the allegations in the indictment. He says, during March 2010, the allegation is that Assange agreed to assist Manning in cracking a password stored on the U.S. Department of Defense computers connected to the classified secret internet protocol router network. That's the SIPRNet. I know this I know the color of the walls in my apartment, but it's a secret internet information network that had all the databases that Chelsea Manning was able to access. And so Manning accessed those and had, she was able to access those because of her duties. She never had unauthorized access to those databases. And so the allegation was that she used those to download classified records to transmit to WikiLeaks. Okay, so then secondly, that the cracking of the password would have allowed Manning to log onto the computers under a username that did not belong to her, and that such a measure would have made it more difficult for investigators to determine the source of the disclosures. Third, relying upon a number of chats surrounding the claimed agreement to substantiate this theory, the prosecution referred to a discussion concerning the release of the information, and specifically the fact that a partial hash value was given by Manning, asking if Assange knew how to assist in cracking it. So we've seen that chat log. That's in the indictment. And what I can say is he very clearly says, Patrick Eller says that there's no evidence of an agreement in this chat. And also, like, the data that was shared, it's not clear that any of this would have allowed for the completion of a hack of any password hash values or allowed her to break in. And then the question is, why would she want to do this? Why would she need to do this? They haven't established a motive. Why would she need to do this in order to move around anonymously? It's suggested that because she has access, all she would need to do is what they have evidence of her doing at one point, which is to use a Linux software CD on her computer in order to. It sounds like you can basically kind of get around the Windows security that is on the computer, and then you're able to download files and escape detection as to the normal Windows security that would have been able to tell what that user was doing. And also, this FTP account that is being described on her government computer had admin privileges that were useful to downloading movies, music, and software. I can't tell you how many times we heard this in the course of her trial as we were trying to explain certain things related to her alleged use of unauthorized access, or her alleged abuse of her access, because all of these soldiers, every single soldier in this facility with Chelsea, including Chelsea, were constantly I mean, if you read the actual law, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, I mean, they were, and the way it was charged against Chelsea, all of these soldiers were committing federal crimes because they were putting music, movies, and programs that their superior officers told them that they were not supposed to have on their computers because it was unsafe. It might have malware. It might lead to making the well. Actually, they're in Baghdad. They're trying to keep systems from overheating. Trying to not they don't want to overload the system and to have too much running to wear down your processors. And also remember, we are 10 years removed from the technology that existed back then. We need to remember the antiques that existed back in 2010 that these soldiers were using for their work. And finally, I'll just say that her computer was wiped days before this agreement allegedly happened between Assange, which they can't prove. And then, because her computer would no longer have any of the files, the music, the movies, the programs that had been downloaded on her computer, she would have an interest in trying to get back the admin privileges, get back that access to the computer. But if maybe she no longer was able to log in because the military wanted to stop soldiers from adding these unauthorized programs, she would need to come up with a way to crack the password and hack into it in order to continue to use her computer the same way. There's just no, in the chain of events, there's no evidence that any of what they're describing here relates to the WikiLeaks disclosures. It just seems like, hey, I want to be able to use my government computer however I want to use my government computer, and I'm going to do what I can to get around the access limitations that have been imposed on me.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, it seems a little counterproductive to me for Lewis to even cross-examine this morning's first witness, because in the course of it, he basically made the defense's case for them. And I don't know, man, for a guy with a mega brain, he sure fell short of that mark. It's just mind-boggling to me that what is now 7-year-old information is being treated, I don't know, as if it is open to interpretation rather than being an official ruling in a U.S. military courtroom.
I just don't understand how a judge could take it seriously when this prosecutor who's representing the U.S. government is going against the digital forensics expert that testified on behalf of the government. I mean, they're trying to make a claim that doesn't even fit the government's theory for prosecuting Chelsea Manning. It's nothing they ever argued. I can't, I have to just insist. This may seem like it's self-evident given my opinion, but let me just be clear. I covered every single day of Chelsea Manning's trial. I did not hear a single bit of evidence from the prosecutors, nor did I even hear an argument about how an agreement was established to hack a password. I do not know what this allegation is. It has been concocted and made up after the fact, after Chelsea Manning was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. Now, I do remember evidence being entered about rainbow tables. I do remember the hash value thing. I know all of this was put on the record, but there weren't any conclusions that could be drawn about it. So it just was there. It just was part of the record.
A little bit ago, Richard Medhurst, friend of the show, put up a quote from Snowden about this exact thing. And the quote says, no, that was in the indictment that they weren't sure if it happened, in the original indictment against Chelsea. In the affidavit against Assange, they actually say it did not happen, this agreement that they were going to hack this together. They directly say they did forensics on Manning's system that this was pulled for. The hash was for a service account for a program to use on the computer for an FTP program, and it was not logged into. So they had not actually succeeded in breaking this. They hadn't used it, but the government is alleging just the sheer fact that Manning said, hey, can you find out what this password is? And if you can, please give it back to me, isn't even really Assange's idea from the chat logs, from what anyone can tell. And now the DOJ is going, look, this is a crime. We're going to charge it as, they call it, password cracking agreement. And that's enough. Just the sheer fact that there's a line in a chat log or a chat thread that says, hey, could you maybe take a look at this? And then it's never mentioned again after the original, no, we can't figure it out. That's the end of the discussion about it between the two of them. And that's the basis of this conspiracy to commit computer intrusion, which is ultimately source protection, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So let me maybe go in a direction that you might not have expected I would go, but it goes to like how the government prosecutes conspiracy cases. I mean, essentially, what we're seeing is no different than the case against. Oddly enough, I can connect this to this trial. So Thomas Durkin is the U.S. Defense attorney who testified. He's based here in Chicago. He was involved in representing three men who were accused of state terrorism offenses here in Illinois. They were accused of a conspiracy to essentially carry out some terrorist attacks. And it was related to the fact that there was a NATO meeting that was held in Chicago in 2012. And one of the things was that there was an informant that was working for police who was working with them. And there was this talk about, Molotov cocktails and trying to get these guys to make Molotov cocktails so they could go throw them at protests during this NATO meeting. And, the evidence to me isn't that much different from this, because the evidence of agreement in that case that essentially convicted these guys was just the mere fact of this informant going up to them and being like, like actually actively being there and trying to get them to participate in making the Molotov cocktail. But two of the three guys never had anything to do with those. But just the mere presence of them was enough to call it an agreement. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, and maybe I'm not doing it as clearly as I could.
I'm following.
But it's almost the same in this chat log. Just the mere proposition becomes the agreement, but there is no agreement. Just suggesting to somebody that, would you crack this password hash, and saying, I guess the fact that, there's no protest. At no point does Assange say no to it. But to me, like, and I guess that's it. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if this is enough to pursue a conspiracy charge against somebody. But I think, like, honestly, I think that there's a lot of people, Muslim Americans, who might even be in prison right now on far thinner evidence and were accused of conspiracy. So on one hand, I look at this and I go, you don't have anything. But at the same time, in the digital age, all you have to do is show a communication, and it creates this idea in your mind that, like, somehow these people were serious about this in their conversation.
Wouldn't that then put the burden on the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the personage of Nathaniel Frank was in fact Julian Assange?
Well, so that's what's interesting about this cross-examination with Patrick Eller, is because he accepted that Nathaniel Frank was Julian Assange, and so that actually made James Lewis's life easier this morning.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying he did anything wrong necessarily, but you're right that, like, one thing that remained throughout Chelsea Manning's trial was that David Coombs was very good about asking, and David Coombs was Chelsea Manning's attorney, was good about consistently asking, do you know for sure that Julian Assange was the one sending these messages as Nathaniel Frank at this time? Yes, you say it was associated with his account, but how can you prove that, his butt was in the computer chair actually sending those messages? And that was, obviously no forensic expert's going to ever be able to say definitively, yeah. Right. Nobody's going to be able to say yes. So no, I mean, this account we believe is associated with Julian Assange, but to date, the government has never proven that Assange was actually using this account to communicate with Chelsea Manning. It could have been somebody in WikiLeaks who was using this account to talk with Chelsea Manning.
It seems like they could further muddy the water on this issue. The defense could, by incorporating the reality that Siggy was convicted of impersonating Julian Assange in 2011?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like it could get, and I'm certainly not a lawyer or trying to tell the defense how to do their job. It just occurred to me that since one of the main witnesses for the prosecution in the superseding indictment has been convicted of impersonating Julian Assange, that they could further obfuscate the point of the prosecution by bringing that up. And if I was the defense, I would be honing in on all of the convictions that Sigurd Thordarson has received throughout his illustrious criminal career.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. So I think you might like this. I'm going to try to pull it up if I can get this to load. So this was the exchange that I made sure I got out while I was frantically taking notes because I thought this was, if you're the defense and the prosecutor gets up to cross-exam and then this happens, you got to feel really good about James Lewis basically falling flat on his face. So he said, he asked Patrick Eller, and by the way, this guy is not just any forensic expert. It's not like he's just someone who goes to hackathons and has supported Electronic Frontier Foundation and donates to WikiLeaks. This is a government dude. This is a guy who's had 20 years in the U.S. military. He worked at Quantico. Like, I mean, how amazing. Based on the story of this case, they found a guy who worked on a digital forensics team who was involved as like a commanding person in a leadership position. He was in charge of handling, like, it says in his statement that I have, that over like 80 people he was managing who were part of this digital forensics squad. Anyways, so he testified. So Lewis says, asked Eller if he agreed that Manning and Assange, quote, thought they could crack the password and then agreed to attempt to crack it. And he replied, a hash was provided and they said they had rainbow tables for it. It never stated where that hash was from. And then he continued, the government's own expert witness in the court-martial stated that was not enough for them to actually be able to do it. It doesn't get much clearer than that. There is no hacking. There was no, and perhaps that points to why we didn't see this charged as an actual hack. It wasn't charged, it's a conspiracy to commit the computer crime. The government didn't charge it as the computer crime. They charged it as a conspiracy, which usually is an indication that the government has no evidence. A lot of conspiracy charges are just, they have no basis whatsoever, as I was suggesting. And then what does Lewis with the mega brain do? How does he respond to Eller basically blowing up this charge, like basically blowing up everything that's put to him? He says, well, are you aware that Assange publicly boasted he is a fantastic hacker? Like maybe he could have come up with some kind of like superhuman hacking capability that we, like, technology has never seen before. Just, and
he also invoked Donald Rumsfeld. Mega Brain did when he basically said the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Holy fuck, it cracked me up, man. It really did. We've been having a little bit of fun with that this morning. I wonder if I can pull the exact quote.
It's on the A4A timeline if you want to find it a little quicker. I retweeted it with a comment.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I'm getting there right meow.
Because as we were kicking off this morning, I actually cracked a joke about that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. And then Lewis literally says it in court. So let me find where this is at. But while we're looking for this, Kevin, have you had any issues with censorship or shadow banning or anything like that you've noticed?
No, not particularly. I mean, I haven't noticed anything on my end. I feel like most of my stuff's getting out of it.
Okay.
I'll be
Because
right.
I have a bit of an issue. So I'm putting together more or less what I would call like a action for Assange press packet.
Okay.
I'm going through each day of court, pulling out the major points and putting it sourced to yours and Mohammed's and Mary's and Juan's and Defense Assange's tweets. But when you go to search for your name, like in Twitter's advanced search, your user handle and then posts between certain dates, it comes up with absolutely nothing.
Huh, I didn't realize that.
And it may just be on my side, but it does the same thing for Mo, and it does the same thing for Defense Assange, where you can't isolate tweets based on the day for your guys' accounts. It says there's nothing there. And then as you're scrolling through, because instead of searching it, I had to scroll all the way down your guys' feeds. It cuts Defense Assange off on the 16th of September. It cut Mohammed off on the 14th or 15th, to where I couldn't find their Twitter threads from before then on Twitter. Like it just wouldn't let me look that deep into Twitter's history to go back to it. So I didn't know if you had noticed any weird things like that.
No, but I've been very busy, so a lot of this stuff I'm just putting out and expecting that people are going to see it, and I'm not sure how far things are going because I have had a lot of other stuff that I've been dealing with.
But I got a little nice
interesting
I can share with you that sources out the major developments from each day.
That's great. I think I'm going to drop off, and I wanted to take care of some things before court comes back at the top of the hour. I don't know if you had anything. Were there any other questions for me before?
No, just that we appreciate you being so vigilant, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's been good to. I enjoyed the lunch break conversations. So I'll see you next week.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep.
Have a good one. I love that he's using Mega Brain now.
Oh, dude, I love it. Everyone needs to be calling QC Lewis Mega Brain.
Mega
I'm
Brain.
literally referring to him as James Mega Brain Lewis.
Yes.
So I have about an hour before we have to get out of here, so I can probably hang out a little bit longer. But this has been goes. So
you
we got an hour before we got to get out of the Airbnb and transfer some things to another non-disclosed location.
I'm sure Steve can cover it for a little bit if he wants to go longer.
Yeah, I mean, I can hang out for a bit, but it'll probably be once lunch is back. So what I would like to do is answer any questions. Hey, Nico, we have had Nico's actually in chat, or someone in the MCSC network is in chat. We've had trouble sharing our links out all week to these. So yeah, it's just kind of the nature of the business, so to say. Let me find this evidence of absence is not absence of absence quote.
I thought it was on Defend Assange.
Yeah, I figured it out though. I grabbed the thing and retweeted it here. So we have. I'll post this tweet here because it's literally gotten one retweet. And if you guys saw the Twitter hack where they showed the admin panels, you'll know that someone could literally be sitting here as we're doing this, clicking "Don't show."
It's called. It's the technical term is the "fuck you" switch.
Yes, and we generally get some traction with our tweets, but most times when we grab something out of court and say, "Hey, public, look at this," that tweet immediately doesn't get traction. Like there was one that Misty just liked and retweeted that the only person on it is Misty and one other person that liked and retweeted it. So I just dropped that link to this in here.
Throughout this trial, every time that I have directly quoted from either defense or the prosecution, not only does it not get traction, but I personally don't see notifications when people like or comment or RT it. Like it's the algorithm makes it so I don't know what is happening with my own tweet unless I go and physically go to the profile, scroll down and take a look at it. And half of the time it's been removed by Twitter, just flat the fuck out removed.
So I had one person grab this tweet and it was really weird what they said, but I want to read this: absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So Lewis challenges Eller's claim that the password was not cracked. Eller deduced this from the conversations that he has seen and saw no evidence that it was. Lewis says, but you do not have evidence that it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Dun,
quite
dun, dun.
Mega Brain. Fuck. That picture is the gift that keeps on giving.
You saved it, right?
Oh, of course.
Okay, making sure.
Yeah. No, it's in my motherfucking files.
I gotta get it saved too. I'm gonna use that
I have a
shit.
feeling that we're gonna get a little bit of mileage out of that. And I did put it out on Twitter, and I tagged Jimmy and Lee and Krish and Placone and Elwood and like any other comic I could think of.
Oh yeah, they're gonna roll. At least one person is gonna roll with it.
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope it's Lee.
And for the sake of everything, I honestly do hope it's Graham that rolls with it.
The problem is though, is people's audience aren't really caught up enough in the court case to understand in true detail
Why?
the mega brain of James Lewis.
Well, so it's a twofold thing.
You can read some quotes, but if you haven't been educated every day about this motherfucker and how bad he does in open court every single time he appears in court, you wouldn't really understand how well his mega brain is working.
So the method to my madness.
More on the charm than the mega brain at this
I'm
point.
talking, Smith.
I'm sorry.
The method to my madness is that by putting out the picture and by tagging these individuals, in order for them to understand why it's truly funny, they have to then go and do a little bit of homework and then bring that homework to their audiences, thereby educating them along the way while they're making fun of Mega Brain.
Mega Brain.
Mega Brain.
If someone has some great Photoshop powers, can you turn that picture into like a supervillain? Like, could you add a little?
We were talking about it in Steve's chat earlier. Like, we want to
tiny little body.
I think you're probably too young, but do you remember the really terrible ads for the MCSC program? That's the Microsoft fucking certification shit. Like,
I thought you were talking about Nico's channel. I was about to be like, man, that's
no SE, not SC.
Okay.
But yeah, we need to take one of those and put Mega Brain all up in there.
Fuck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great. I'm for that. Somebody with Photoshop skills, make that happen.
I have MS Paint skills, so I can make it happen really poorly.
I'm better. I'm better than that, Andrew. Come on.
Y'all know me. I don't assign homework often. So
this may be a fun like audience challenge to see who can meme out and edit Mega Brain the best, and then we could like give away an A for A T-shirt or something like that. That might be cool.
Yeah.
Just have more T-shirts.
Yeah.
Did we ever get the T-shirt file to pasta?
You're asking a mean panda question to me. I don't know.
I'm gonna save that question for later.
That's a mean panda question.
For sure.
Yeah. Do you guys like the way how we abdicate responsibility here in Action for Assange? You have no idea how often in like our internal messages there's like, oh well, that's an Andrew question or that's a Josh question. That's a Steve question. I know. Fucking everybody's like, hey, here's the buck. I'd like to pass it to you.
My favorite is that's above my pay grade.
Which gets you instant props every time you use it on a military base or at a VA. The moment you say that's above my pay grade, you have instant camaraderie with the rank and file soldiery. You do.
Hey, I was a military kid, so
yeah. That and don't call me sir. I work for a living. That is instant endearment.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Good times.
Oh.
Interesting.
Andre vanished.
He may have to bounce soon too to get out of there, so you may have to pick up for a while.
Out of the house, so I'm probably going to have to bounce here in a little bit.
Yeah.
I kind of want to stay for the Fitzgerald's cross-examination because that's starting as we're speaking right now. Well, not really.
You still got to be out of the house at a certain time.
Yeah, but for the most part, we're packed up. For the most part, like everything that can fit in the car is in the car, short of a bag of clothes and laptop. Do we want to wrap here? Do we want to call it early today and just leave it where it is, and then we'll pick up tomorrow with we'll just go through the cross-examining.
There is no tomorrow.
No, we have a vigil tomorrow.
Tomorrow on the vigil. You know, I mean, I can give you as much time as you need to clear out, but I will probably stick with it till at least till like 7 my time.
Okay.
Maybe 7:30.
Yeah, I don't want to waste all this coffee I just destroyed.
That's fair. I mean, I can still keep hanging out for a little bit. I'm not.
We'll be able to manage without you for a little bit. It'll be all right.
Yeah, and I threw up a Hail Mary to Kendra to see if she could jump in for a moment. Although I doubt it. She's got.
I don't want to throw a name, but
Rob just gave us a super chat. Thank you, Rob. It's a pay grade assist.
Thank you, Rob Juno.
I'll be back in just a second.
I am endlessly amazed by the boundless generosity of Rob. He is just.
He's awesome in general.
Warms my cold dead heart. Really does.
And he's great in the chat.
You know what, man? I know I say this like at least once a week.
Oh, it's true though.
We really we've somehow managed to have like the fucking best goddamn chat crew on the interwebs. Like,
and they chase off trolls in like a quarter of a second. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah. I've never seen anything like it.
I think I've had to block 2 people and that's it, or put someone in timeout for 5 minutes for being a racist shitheel or something, and that's it. Yeah. Everyone else is like pounce.
Martin K. O'Connor just now. Does anyone see the parallels between the attempt by the ICC court to bring justice to the U.S. for their war crimes and the U.S. attempts to persecute Assange for revealing those crimes? The U.S. and certainly this administration more than most views the International Criminal Court as a hindrance to their global manifest destiny. They've threatened everything from sanctions to psyops openly in public on the ICC if the ICC tries to make an attempt to prosecute anyone from any U.S. administration.
Man, I just read your signal.
Huh?
I just read your signal message.
Oh.
Oh man, good
Yeah.
stuff.
The parallels that I see between these things, Martin, is just the fucking bloated hand of a criminal regime in the U.S. intelligence services, trying not only to control the narrative, but trying to control all participants in a world that they view as theirs. That's the parallel that I see. Yes, the ICC has toyed with the idea of, or vocalized the idea of wanting to investigate people responsible for war crimes. And there have been immediate threats of retaliation against the ICC by the fucking US government, which you would think would spark some sort of at least, I don't know, diplomatic corps based international incident. But the U.S. is the biggest bully on the block. We are partnered with, the other Five Eyes countries and with Israel, and that forms a nuclear armed block of bullies. It just, yeah, I mean, in terms of trying to keep the truth in the dark, there are certainly parallels. Yes. I hope that explains some shit. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Sorry, I'm responding to a message.
All good. I'm not as picky on dead air at this ungodly hour.
Right. So I'm gonna go ahead and return to the threads here and see what is doesn't look like anything. We're not back from lunch yet. That's right. So in the interim 15 minutes, I guess I should probably sure. Ooh, looks like we might be joined by Nikki from France too.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I know, it's as much as I hate getting up early, I somewhat enjoy these streams. Like, I mean, it's crappy why we're here and everything, but it's been good to be able to talk to people more.
I just fucking spilled a little pile of mushrooms.
It's a poikinism.
Well, shit. Things you only hear Steve say in the middle of a very fucking sobering live stream. Crap.
It is legal there. So I think you're good.
Huh?
I said it's legal there even, so I think you're good.
It's decriminalized. Yes, all plant-based psychedelics have been decriminalized in Santa Cruz County as of January 1st of this year. You can possess up to an ounce of mushrooms or a what is it? I think it's an ounce of changa leaf, which is one of the DMT based plant psychedelics.
I think they're doing that somewhere else.
I've been over this before, man. I really am a proponent of a microdose regime, especially if you are an individual that is prone to depression or you have had some traumas that you are trying to work through. Very small amounts of psychedelics are incredibly beneficial. Adrian, yeah, my name's Steve Poikinen. It's only as complicated as you want to make it, I guess. I don't know. It's Finnish. I'm 42 years old. I've had people make fun of my name since I was born, so there's pretty much like I roll with it at this point.
So we have
welcome, Adrian. I'm glad you watch the channel from time to time, and I hope you become a regular. Go ahead, Andre.
Does Lewis understand the prosecutorial ethics and the prosecutor's duty of neutrality, or is he only interested in $2 store justice?
I think Lewis is interested in a legacy. I think Lewis wants to be talked about and whispered in reverent tones like other trial lawyers or trial prosecutors are after they've achieved a relative amount of success or fame. I don't think for a moment that Lewis doesn't have a personal interest in this case. I think that he has made it almost a crusade, if you will, a religious experience of sorts to get Julian Assange. This is evidenced by both his method of cross-examination and his very frequent outbursts at everyone, including Judge Vanessa Baratzer.
So I want to give just a shout out to everybody in chat. We got 2 people watching on Twitch, 5 people on Facebook, 21 people in the A4A chat, and 21 people in the MCSC chat.
And we got about 25 in Slow News Day.
So I just want to say thank you to everyone that's getting up at this heinously ridiculous early hour. On the East Coast, we're pushing 9 o'clock, but on the West Coast, we're still not even past 6 right now.
It's true.
So I just want to say thank you to the more than 75 people that are tuning in to check this out. It's been a hell of a journey. This is our last day here in Washington, D.C. So I just want to talk a little bit, because we got about 10 minutes before court comes back, about what we've been able to accomplish in this time. We crowdfunded somewhere in the vicinity of $12,000 to $13,000 to get here. The majority of which was spent on housing to be able to get us here and stay here for 3 weeks. We spent a bunch of it on different props and things like that for the actual setup. And then what's ever left from that, we are going to be donating to other Free Assange groups, whether it's Wise Up Action, whether it's Shadowproof, that's done a great job in reporting, Stella Morris's campaign for the legal team, stuff like that. So we really appreciate all of the money that people have donated to make this happen. We only crowdfund when we do events. We do not raise money outside of that. There is no personal gain from any of us from doing this. So I just thank the audience and everyone that donated and trusting us to get here. We may have to come back again, depending on what the court rules and everything that happens with the appeals process, which I'm not looking forward to, but I am looking forward to being the voice on the ground here. Today, we will be going to the Lincoln Memorial, which is, if you remember all the way back to September 7th, that was the first event that we did during the court period. We did go out on Friday before Capitol Hill, but our first official event for the court trial was going to the Lincoln Memorial. So we're going back there. And when I was dropping off the permit to the park police, because you have to permit here, otherwise you just immediately get chased out, there was a Billy Graham festival taking place right around the Lincoln Memorial. And they're expecting about 13,000 people there starting today.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's so weird. There's a Billy Graham semi-trailer at a church in Felton down the road from me that's supposed to be there to, like, I don't know, I guess provide mass evangelical fucking quote-unquote support to victims of the fire that went through here. I don't know, but it's really weird. The giant trailer, it says Billy Graham Experience or some shit like that. Billy Graham Ministry.
They're doing that in D.C. too. And then, to be legally smack dab in the middle of it with our Free Assange tent, with our sounds blasting. If everything goes the way it should, we will have Max Blumenthal joining us today as well. We've had some issues with locations and police on Wednesday and Thursday. So that was a little hectic, but I am really glad to be able to do the Lincoln Memorial on site. I have the permit in my pocket, so if they ask questions, I can just be like, here, this is approved. So I'm just super excited because we're going to be doing at least 4 hours outside of the Lincoln Memorial from about 2 until about 6, if not a little longer, just depending on how exhausted we are. So I cannot say thank you enough to everyone that has helped make this happen. I hope every dollar that people donated, they feel like it was worth it, because we really tried our hardest. Like, we were working 22 hours a day here, making sure that we were getting content up, making sure we were getting streams done, doing work with calls to action and networking and trying to get movement behind the scenes. So this was a full-fledged Operation Free Assange event here that took place and getting everybody out and getting everyone connected. So I just, again, thank you so much. And I don't think I can say that enough. But if I say it anymore, Josh will probably yell at me.
It's possible. But no, I'd like to we should be thanking our audience. I'm shocked they got us here, honestly. So thank you.
It's extra amazing because of the way that like world economies got shut down because of the Rona, and there's been next to no outlet discussing this. Like outside of the people that we talk about routinely, but there's been minimal mainstream or independent media coverage of this. So it speaks to the level of engagement of our audience, and to the dedication of our audience to want to see, some real actual reporting being done on this issue. And yeah, we can't thank you enough. It does look like here shortly that we're going to be joined by Nikki K from France, our friend Katja's Compass.
And if you don't follow her, do that.
Pardon?
I said if people don't follow her, they should be doing that.
Absolutely. She's got some great stuff. She's been on with us a few times now, along with Victor Dadaj. And it also looks like we get a Kendra for a little bit here shortly too.
Nice.
Yeah. So, Andre will have plenty of
chances to mix her name up and completely embarrass myself.
You said it, not me.
I ain't say shit.
So for anyone who doesn't know, this has been ongoing for 7-8 months now.
Well, it's the 9th month, almost the 10th, and you started confusing names early February. Yeah, it's solid 8 months, maybe not. Your mistake could come to term, and you could deliver any fucking day now.
Yeah, I'm really bad with names. I don't know if people notice by my wonderfully articulate reading skills, but everyone's name is up for debate, in my opinion. So, no, I do appreciate Kendra jumping in, though. I think it'll be a lot of fun having everyone join us.
I've said it before, but I'm the only one that hasn't called Kendra Kimber.
That's because you only call Kimber Mean Panda.
That's why I do that.
And I didn't do it until I had heard Andrew do it for like the 50th fucking time in a row, and then it fell out of my mouth one day when we were in DC the first time, and I was like, oh, fuck my life.
Yeah.
God damn it. And now I do it like once a month.
Poor Kendra.
It's bad. It's really bad. And I called David, like, for no ass reason. Like, I don't even know a David that does this, and somehow his name becomes David half the time. So I would like to apologize to everyone whose names I confuse on a very frequent basis for no reason.
Martin O'Connor is who a yellow vest? Nikki? I don't believe so, but I am not familiar with her wardrobe choices.
I have a yellow vest in my bag. Anybody can be a yellow vest. All you got to do is do it.
Yeah.
While we're in a lull here, though, decentralized action. Be the person in your community that's handing out flyers, putting posters on poles, walking around yelling about this. Maybe not that one, but you can if you want. Go to local media outlets, ask them to cover this. Like, do what you can with the time and money that you have in your local community. Most places still have people out walking around. Putting up posters is a great way to help spread the message to the public. We cannot lose this court case, and the only way that we're going to win it is in the court of public opinion. So we have to apply pressure in that way. We have to educate our cities on what is happening in Julian's case. Steve and I will, at some point, eventually start doing live events around the country where we're going to be meeting up with Assange supporters, trying to host something maybe on the backs of stand-up comedy shows or in the same town in the same time. We don't know. We're working on it. But in the meantime, try to set up events at your local public libraries to educate people about Julian's situation. Print media and radio media are desperate for advertisers right now because no one has money, and 60% of businesses on Yelp have now been closed due to the heinous lockdown measures. So you can get prime advertising for a quarter of what it used to cost. Be the one person, be the crazy person in your town that does not let this go, because when this is gone, they're literally opening the door to prosecute anyone that's ever even read a WikiLeaks file. So
not only that, but they were not shy about saying that the U.S. has every right to prosecute journalists and criminalize journalism.
right.
That was made by statement was made by Claire Dobbins while she was cross-examining. Shankman.
That's I believe that's the only person she's actually cross-examined, and she did terrible.
She really did. She really did. I mean, I guess if you've got to fake a coronavirus scare just to buy your prosecution team a couple of extra days to sort out maybe why it is they're getting their ass kicked, then
and man, I can't tell you how many. Actually, I will tell you. How many instances of tech issues there was through the first day of week 2, because I have been going through and categorizing all this. So there are 12 different times that it was reported that the court was having technical issues between the 4 days of week 1, which was really 3 days, and the first day of week 2. There is 12 different statements about 12 different events which can be classified as technical issues coming out of the UK court system. So that's particularly gross. I haven't finished categorizing all of the rest of it, but I'm sure that we will be in excess of 20 different times where reports of technical issues came out just from the 4 or 5 journalists that I'm sourcing this work from. So the UK is not doing a very good job. In your town that does not let this go, because when this is gone, they're literally opening the door to prosecute anyone that's ever even read a WikiLeaks.
Are you watching this live right now, Nikki?
We're not shy about saying that the U.S.
Yeah, you are. Can you turn off your YouTube?
Journalists and criminalize journalism. Right. That was made by.
This is super weird. I just want everybody to know how weird this is.
While she was crossing.
There we go. Hey, Nikki, how's it going?
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. I haven't been able to follow everything today because there have been stabbings in near my neighborhood. So there's police everywhere. So I don't know what's going on, and I'm not getting out till it's safe. So, yeah.
Well, the good news is the prosecution basically fell flat on their face again today.
How surprising.
Right. Prosecutor Lewis went as far as to talk about the evidence from Chelsea Manning's trial that proved that Chelsea did all of the exfiltration and downloading from her own personal account, that there was no other account that is known in her court martial about how information was accessed. So that was a big piece. And there was this crazy battle of Windows user manuals that happened between Lewis and the witness, to where they were both citing different user manuals, software update versions. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. But Lewis essentially talked himself into a corner about how the password could have been cracked but wasn't. So it was pretty good watching Lewis literally just talk himself in circles and have a military forensic analysis about how wrong he was.
Right. I would have thought that he would have called an expert witness about the forensics, but I mean, if he's such a mega brain, he doesn't need the experts, right? I mean, he can just give evidence to the bar.
I love that. I love that's catching on. Mega brain.
Yeah. Well,
it's his own goddamn fault.
Exactly. I mean, it's not like we found the profile on another site. It's on his own site. So, he's promoting himself in that way. So we should help him. We should help him with his own promotion.
That's my hope, that enough stand-up comedians will get that picture, that we can really let people know who James Lewis QC is.
Well, we like him. We like him because he's doing some work for us, unwittingly. But I suppose in one way he doesn't have anything to worry about, because the court he's facing is on his side. That's fairly clear. I think. You don't have to be a lawyer to see that. So he, he's got a good forum. It's the referee's on his side so far, and it looks like, and there's a script. So they're all reading from a script, apart from the Assange's legal team. The rest of them are reading from a script.
And to the point to where Captain Megabrain himself yelled at someone on the stand, "You need to stick to my script."
Yeah.
Not stick to the script or a script.
Not even hiding it.
Script. I am Megabrain. Stick to my script.
How bad is it that they're not even hiding that it's a sham trial? That is a worry that they're not.
The thing is, they are hiding it, which is my fear. And by hiding it, I mean it's not being circulated, and the absurdity of court isn't being sent through the mainstream media to create shockwaves throughout society.
It's a closed trial. I mean, yeah. I sent an email to the judge the other day. I'll read it out if you
Please
like.
Do. Yeah.
It's a short email. I sent it to her, to one of the bureaucrats in there, and I asked her to pass it on to the judge. And she said she did pass it on to the judge. So let me find it very quickly. Here it is. And so I said, "Dear Ms. King, in one of your earlier emails to me, you gave me certain assurances as to open justice and stated that the judge has now confirmed that observers, trial monitors, and other interested parties can attend the hearing virtually via the cloud video platform CVP. Said statement indicates that the arrangements for open justice are the judge's decision, not that of a private security firm, because I was told that it's for the security firm, for security to decide who goes in or out. Apparently, it's not a private security firm, but it's security. It is common. So I'm going back to my email. It is common knowledge that to date, the court's cloud video platform CVP service has been fraught with countless problems. If justice must be seen to be done, CVP is not facilitating the view. Does the judge consider it fair and reasonable and in the interests of justice to risk the exclusion of people like Dr. Deepa Driver, a legal observer with a mandate from the Haldane Society of Socialist Lawyers, from the main courtroom? Has the judge made any formal ruling delegating a portion of her powers over to the said security firm? If so, could you please provide such ruling? If not, please provide evidence of her instructions to said security firm, in particular insofar as concerns access of the public to the courtrooms in the Assange case. It is worthwhile noting once again that Dr. Deepa Driver is not just any member of the public, but a mandated legal observer with high credentials and should be allowed to occupy one of the court's reserved VIP seats in such a high-profile case of historical importance. The fact that the court is imposing seemingly arbitrary obstacles on such members of the public raises significant questions as to its independence and impartiality. I would be grateful if you could forward this email to Judge Barreta, and I look forward to your response, blah, blah, blah. And I was told that my email was forwarded to the judge, and we'll see what happens. Now I just have to go back to the other screen where I can see.
So I actually have to, just me personally, we're not closing the stream down. I just have to jump off because we got about 15 minutes until we have to be fully out of the house.
Yeah, sure. That's why I sent a message as well, so you can be released to do your thing, and I'll take over a little bit from help out Steve while you're changing place.
Well, cool. I appreciate you guys, and thank you for hopping in here at the last minute. And I just want to thank again everybody behind the scenes that has made this possible, including those people in our personal lives that have given up so much time to allow us to do all these things. So thank you, everybody, and I will talk to you either tonight.
You're doing a great job, by the way. You guys are doing a fantastic job. So I hope you get a lot more people watching what you're doing. It's pretty amazing.
Go knock him dead at the Lincoln Memorial, Andre.
Oh, I will. Those Billy Graham fans are about to be impressed. I'll see you guys later.
Hey, Kendra.
Kendra,
hey guys, I just missed Andrew, off to the Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah, well, there's a 10 a.m. checkout that the Airbnb owners were pretty adamant we stick to. Apparently, and I can't fathom why, but one neighbor in particular was pressuring the Airbnb host to make sure that we followed the Airbnb rules and were gone exactly when we were supposed to be gone today.
I can understand that live streaming outside, you know what I mean? It's like, whoa, who is next door?
Hey, you know what? We wouldn't have to if there was worldwide media attention on this.
Is this also Katya that's on, or?
Yes.
Yes, it's me. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, nice to see you. Thank you for
That's
catching
not my real
that.
name. Hi.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So,
Yeah,
we
my
did,
real name is Nikki, but I use Katya because I'm an author as well, and one of my pen names is Katya Stiletti. So initially, when I got onto Twitter, I was using that name to promote that book, and so I kept to it for that reason. But my real name is Nikki.
so we are back from recess, and this is coming out of Assange defense. Mark Summers for the defense, re-examining Patrick Eller. The Jabber chat has one user as nobody. We know that's Manning because she said so at her trial, right? Eller answers correct. And this is something that we were talking about with Kevin during the break, so I'm glad this is taking place in open court. Summer says, were you asked to determine who Nathaniel Frank is? Eller says no. He says, so why attribute that name to Assange in your statement? Eller says that was just assumed. Summers says, so we can't know whether that's Assange. Eller has to answer no, or whether multiple users were behind that username. And he says, well, we can't know that. Continuing on, Summers says, do you stand by your assessment that cracking the hash as alleged would have been impossible? Eller says, yes, I do. Summers says Microsoft's assessment was that it was computationally infeasible for a password hash to be cracked as such. That is correct. Because of a patch on that vulnerable. I got fucking computationally infeasible right, but I can't get vulnerability right. Jesus. Because of a patch on that vulnerability. Yes. The software remained in place on all MS Windows applications for the next 2 decades. That's correct. Would a skilled hacker be able to achieve something that is computationally infeasible? He says, I would assume no. Do you deviate from your opinion that this would have been impossible? No, and I note this is in line with the government's own expert in Manning's trial. Is it confirmed that the CIPRNet is an intranet and not the internet? Yes, we can get into that explanation here shortly. How many people had access to CIPRNet? Anyone tasked with using a secret government database or computer. Can you give a number? Probably in the millions. The judge seems surprised. In the millions? Yes. Now, this is something that Daniel Ellsberg has talked about too, with the U.S.'s crazy classification system. There's something like 100,000 people with the exact same rank as Chelsea Manning had access to the exact database that she did, and that is just people in that rank. There are also additional hundreds of thousands of other people who had access to that database.
Which is just insane that everybody had access to that, you know? I mean, how they were belligerent themselves with their own material.
Yeah, I mean, they
Right?
were flat out like open about, yes, we're using this software so that we can download music and video games, even though we know that's a no-no. You still have the piece of tape over that hat, or did you take it off?
No, it's staying.
It's still there? That's fucking
Yeah.
awesome, dude. That's quality.
I'll be back in like 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm lost without you. Let's see. Going over to as just a rehash of what has taken place that we just read out on the Assange defense account. Yeah, so I'm glad that we have a moment here where there's some shock by the concierge for the U.S. State Department, because it does expose how ridiculous the system of classification is here in the U.S. Another thing that Ellsberg said was that the Manning leaks themselves are very low level classified material, and that what Ellsberg produced that became the basis of the Pentagon Papers was much, much, much higher up the classification ladder. Nikki, can you weigh in on any of this?
Well, as Alfred Desire said, it's never a crime to expose a crime. So apart from that, there are executive orders that say that you cannot classify crimes, you cannot classify anything that's politically embarrassing. So the classification in itself is invalid. That's what I think. So legally, this that should be a non sequitur. I mean, there's nothing to discuss there. They committed war crimes. Whether or not they tried to cover them up in a so-called legal way, that has failed in reality. The reality is that these crimes cannot be classified. They can have the name classification stamped on them, but they cannot be classified. And we on the outside of the trial should always be bringing the focus on those war crimes. And we should also work to, the word war crimes has become normalized. People don't understand what's involved. Rape, torture, there's a whole list of things. Genocide, genocide is dealt with separately under the Statute of Rome. But, we are dealing with very serious, heinous crimes on a mass scale. And we seem to lose the focus on what this means. We need to be bringing it back to the public what these, 1 million people were killed. 1 million Iraqis were killed. We're looking at, crimes that are as big as what when we look at the amount of time that has gone past, these wars have started 20 years ago nearly, and they are everywhere in 7 countries. So we're looking at, if it's 1 million in Iraq alone of dead people, we're not even looking at the orphans, the mutilated people, the raped people, the whole mess, the destruction of infrastructure, hospitals, which apparently are bombed by accident, so many accidents, where you bomb schools, hospitals, water reservoirs, you sanction, the same people are sanctioned so they can't get medicine. It's horrific. And people are concerned about, is Assange a good guy or a bad guy? Do we like him? Does he have Asperger's? Because Asperger's apparently, being a hero is a psychiatric illness. That's where we're at. You have to be diagnosed with an illness to explain heroism, because God forbid, the normal is a psychopath, or many psychopaths. They are normal. These are the normal people. They have courts. They set up courts. The psychopaths have courts, and the heroes have psychiatric illnesses. I would like somebody to psychiatrically assess the POTUS and the MOTUS and the whatever, all the OTUSes. Who is going to psychiatrically assess these people? The Biden, America has a choice between 2 crazy nutters who are also criminals. They are war criminals. They have to choose which is the least worst of the 2 war criminals. This is the situation. And now, of course, everything's going according to plan, because what they wanted, and they've succeeded in this, was to muzzle Assange until after the election. They've done it. And even if there is a ruling at the end of the day, I mean, I'm sure the ruling exists already, it's been pre-written. They might have to amend it a little bit. The ruling will take another 2 or 3 months, maybe longer, and then appeal, the appeal will, they will have to seek appeal. And the appeal is not automatic for people who think that appeal is automatic. It's not. You ask for permission. It's called leave to appeal. You ask for permission to go to the higher court. There is a
So let's flesh that out a little bit more, because we're kind of at a lull in the testimony. They're going over basically, this is a re-examination, and Mark Summers is wrapping up with Eller here. So let's go through this process a little bit. Like, who determines if permission is granted?
the higher court that they will appeal to.
And is that a single magistrate, or is that a panel of magistrates? Like
I don't know, because I don't know the UK system well enough.
God damn it, Nikki! I have questions.
No, I know. Sorry, but I don't want to mislead the public. I don't know exactly. I do know that it's always the higher court that you appeal to. They decide if leave will be granted. Leave means permission. If permission will be granted for the appeal. And there's always a risk, even if it's a remote one, there's always a risk that leave to appeal will be rejected. And then we're in deep doo-doo.
We've heard speculation from people that who are, I believe, a little bit more familiar with this process, certainly more familiar with it than I am, that higher court magistrates and judges are less inclined to be motivated by careerism or ladder climbing than, for example, the concierge for the U.S. State Department, Vanessa Baraitser.
Yes, that's hopeful. That's hopeful thinking, as far as I'm concerned. You know, Assange did go to before the Court of Appeal or an appeal court with that Swedish bogus, disgusting circus, and he was before a higher court, and the higher court ruled against him. So I don't have much confidence in the UK judicial system at all. No judge. It is apparent not only to judges, lawyers, and the public that this is a sham trial. No judge has spoken, even though it's obvious that there is no due process. Apart from the former High Court judge, the Australian High Court judge, Michael Kirby, apart from him and another 2 or 3 retired judges, nobody has spoken about this disgusting, burlesque, which nobody in their right mind could call a trial. They should have. It's as if, imagine if we were in Hitler's Germany and we could all see what's happening, and no judge is saying, this is ridiculous, stop this now. And in any case, it doesn't have to go through the judicial system. They could do what they did in Pinochet's case. In Pinochet's case, the Home Secretary of the time, Jack Straw, just tore up the whole thing and said, go away, the guy's medically unfit for trial. They could do this now. Dominic Raab could say, Assange is clearly medically unfit for trial. He's a torture victim. Torture victims are automatically medically unfit for trial. So Dominic Raab has the power to say, we're going to tear up the extradition, the whole thing. We're going to make it go away. And in any case, if we compare it, we really should be comparing it with Pinochet. Pinochet was a mass murderer. He killed more than 40,000 people. He was staying, the whole period of the trial, he was staying in some mansion, some estate, having the time of his life. He was supported by Thatcher and many other politicians. And the whole thing was, it was a Mickey Mouse trial, but in favor of Pinochet. And in the end, nobody was extradited anywhere. He had a nice, peaceful life and died in his bed.
This, however, is a Mickey Matt trial in the parlance of our friend Ray McGovern, which makes it significantly more insidious, in my opinion.
There's been times during this trial where it's just been so ridiculous with some of the judges' rulings. Even this idea that, she'll have until January to decide, but yet the defense is expected to have, all of their closing arguments done, at the end of next week. I don't know if do you guys know if that's been 100% decided on yet?
They did kick it over 4 weeks from what I read.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
they'd applied for it. I didn't know if it was
what Baraitser said. She already said before they even made a decision that she wasn't going to be able to issue a ruling until after the election anyway, which in my mind speaks to the absolute political nature of this hearing.
Yeah, maybe on inauguration day. When's the inauguration day for the new president?
I believe January 20th.
Well, there you go. It might come out around the same time.
But I was going to say, my point was, it's like, I almost, there's been times where it's just been so ridiculous. I'm like, is she in some odd way trying to set this up so it's easy for appeal? Is that like the most she can do in her, terrible situation there, expected to rule for
Someone
the
who
U.S.?
shows up with prepared statements before arguments are even heard is not working in the interest of the defendant.
No, I know, but I'm just, you know what I mean? It's been so ridiculous that it seems that appeal would be easy to get, but of course, that's assuming that there's some sort of semblance of law left in the UK.
Yeah, well, again, I don't have confidence in the upper ranks of the system either. It smells wherever you look. When you look at the previous Home Secretary, it stinks. You look at the supervising judge that has never recused herself, despite what the court reporter, the so-called court reporter, Charlie Dan Jones says. That's misreporting. It's a lie. It's false. It may not be a lie. Maybe he doesn't intend to say that, but he's there to praise Barreta, and so I don't have much confidence in what he says. I also don't have confidence in what he says because his reporting is false. Maybe unintentionally, but it's false. It's misreporting. So I'm not interested in what he says, apart from telling the world out there that Charlie is doing a good job for the system and not to inform the public. He also got certain aspects of what the treaty says wrong. There's quite a few tweets that I screenshot where there is false and misleading information. And he is, just by coincidence, the first reporter that was allowed into the main courtroom. Coincidence? Another coincidence? There's so many of them.
That was such a great find. I really appreciated you finding that, because we had been, at least on our Denver account, looking for different people retweeting, and I know that we had retweeted him a few times, and I was really appreciative that you found that, because it was just complete smears there. And I don't and to your guys' knowledge, those VIP seats have still never been filled, correct?
Well, they're not allowed to reserve seats for a start. Apparently, I have the response to Emmy Butlin's FOI. The response comes from a government authority. It clearly says that nobody is allowed to reserve seats. It's clear. I'll send you a screenshot of it. In fact, I'll send you the whole document afterwards. I can't find it straight away. So they're not allowed to reserve seats. If there are seats reserved, who are they being given to? I would really love to know the names of the VIPs, the VIPs. And I really would like to know why people like Rebecca Vincent is not allowed in. I mean, she's supposed to be for Reporters Without Borders. So it's an important NGO. I really would like to know why mandated legal observers like Deepa Driver is, these people, they are allowed in if they queue, but there's always a risk that they will not make it. They have to stand in a queue for hours, and they may make it in the court, they might not. These people, if anyone should be reserved a seat, it should be Rebecca Vincent and Deepa Driver. And if there's some kind of instruction to the security people outside to handle this way, I'd like to know why. I'd like to know what the instructions are, and I'd like to know why people that should be in there are not, especially when I was given assurances by email. I'll send you the screenshot. I was given assurances that all of these people would be allowed in. All access through the cloud platform, which again, it doesn't work.
At Action for Assange, we're given credit by Her Majesty's prison for petitioning them successfully to have the cloud video platform in the first place. Like, we have an email from them thanking us and crediting us for the reality of the cloud video platform, so that Reporters Without Borders and Amnesty and 38 other groups could observe. And the first day in court,
well, I'd
And
like to say,
using the excuse that, well, somebody took a picture of Julian last time.
mm,
That was the excuse Beretzer gave for shutting
Oh.
out NGOs from observing this hearing.
well, you know what? Why did she allow the person that took the photo? Everyone knows who it was. Why did she allow that person back in court? I mean, she could have excluded that person from court. She could have fined that person. She could have hit them with contempt of court, whatever. She hasn't done that. So, you know, who knows what's really going on there for a start. But the other thing I wanted to mention about Reporters Without Borders is they've got the power to downgrade the UK. The UK is at position 35 right now.
Yeah.
They can throw the UK down to 135 if they want to. Now the process happens sometime in January, I believe. You know, I mean, they can't do it for 2020, but they're in a position to say that if you keep excluding us from this trial and not allowing us to observe it properly, because even though they're allowed in with great, you know, having to jump all sorts of hurdles, it's not. This is not normal that they have to jump hurdles to get in. They could say, well, there's a risk that this country will be downgraded when we review you, but they haven't said that either. So you know, I mean, they need to get a bit tougher as well. And instead of just doing petitions, we want more. I expect more from Reporters Without Borders and from Amnesty. I expect more.
I want to return to this. I have a quick update for the proceedings. About 7 minutes ago, they're done with the re-examination of Eller. The court has now moved on to discussing potential release of medical reports to the press. Fitzgerald said open justice would not be advanced by the disclosure of this. They've already had several days of testimony on it. This again is the defense team trying to protect every aspect of Julian Assange's medical history from becoming an open subject of discussion beyond what has already been talked about in the hearings this week, which, by the way, damn near fucking broke me.
Yeah, I get that, man. This has been one of the toughest weeks I can remember.
I'm not really too up to date. Same here, Steve. It's very difficult. I mean, how could that even be legal to put someone's entire medical history out?
Well,
it's a breach. It's a breach of another one of his human rights, and also a breach of the human rights of his family.
Yes.
Yeah. But you know, nothing is normal in this case. That's why it's a shit show, sham trial. Nothing is normal. This judge bends over backwards and does cartwheels backwards and forwards to give everything she can to the prosecution. Mega brain.
That's why we've been calling her the concierge for the U.S. State Department since like March of this year.
Yeah. Very kind adjective.
You're welcome. Hey, look, let it never be said that I don't make an effort to be kind.
That's true. Kill them with kindness. Be kind.
Extra mile some kindness from time to time.
Be kind. If these people want to leave a legacy, I mean, they're crazy. What kind of legacy do they think they're going to leave? And is it verified that she was given the QC, the promotion? The 30 pieces of silver?
No, that's just Andrew being
she wasn't. Okay, so she didn't get the 30 pieces of silver.
Yeah, I made him correct that. I think it was yesterday. I'm like, dude, you can't be saying it like it's fact. You have to put some context there.
I told him he's gonna fucking confuse people, but that's Andrew. He's like, I'll fucking keep everybody wondering.
Well, she might, you know. I mean, we could be joking about it today. Maybe on the day she hands out the ruling, she'll also get.
You know, it often shit that we have joked about has actually come to pass like days later or months later. That's not because we're prescient, it's because we're cynical and we rely on humor as a coping mechanism.
Yes,
that's true.
Yes. Well, humor is very powerful. Some of the, you know, the greatest truths about this case have come out from Jimmy Dore and Lee Camp, and you know, for some reason, humor seems to get through to people much better and more effectively than.
The only way I know how to deal with this shit.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, a lot of people are terrorized. a lot of people. I know lots of people who support Julian, that they're too scared to come out there and put their names on it. I know lots of doctors, lots of lawyers who say, yeah, keep fighting. And thanks for the support. Keep fighting.
There's a fairly common refrain throughout folklore and storyteller songs that when you have nothing, you have nothing to lose. And I have nothing, so I'm gonna stick my fucking neck out. You know, like the regard that I have for my own personal health and safety obviously is pretty fucking slim. So I'm not necessarily worried about, you know, whatever the future may look like. I want this information out, and I
But
want
there's
it
another.
out. Yeah, of course. You know, I mean,
there's another one though too. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, somebody said to me recently, if somebody sticks a gun to your head, you'll change your mind and you'll turn into a chicken. And I said,
shoot me, I dare you. I fucking dare you. Pull the fucking trigger.
No, I said, well, if somebody has to stick a gun to my head to make me say something else, and they're the chicken, not me. Yeah.
Well, and then there's also that saying, you know, the little that you have will be taken away. And that's where I hit my head against a wall. Is I'm just like, I understand why you wouldn't want to, but if you don't, you know, if everybody doesn't speak out now, you know, that's what we need. And then whatever little piece you're hanging on to, you know, is like an independent content creator. Or honestly, I mean, I really think that even for the mainstream media, if this gets put into law and this precedent is set, you know, even what they're doing is going to be even more controlled. And it's, you know, that's just the nature of corruption. It gets worse. It's not like, oh, we're going to impose this, you know, really draconian system, and then we're going to be really nice to everybody.
Well,
that's not what happens.
This goes back to the idea in the U.S. political realm that, like, okay, well, once you get this person elected, then you can hold their feet to the fire, and that's just backwards logic. You can't give someone ultimate power and then expect them to walk away from that. That's not how that shit works. You get concessions out of them before they attain power, so that you can then wave that in front of their face when they have power.
Well, apart from that, that's not democracy. I mean, democracy means that the power is in the hands of the people, and they can't have power if they don't have information. So freedom of the press is totally, intimately, absolutely linked to having a democracy. So how can people be crying about their democracy and not be interested in one of the pillars of democracy? You know,
that's fair. I'm trying to see if there's any movement with the hearing going on currently. I would love to get some takes from both of you, and I don't know how long, Kendra, you have before you've got to bounce for work. I know I've got about 45 more minutes in my own right. But I want to know what you think the high points in terms of disclosing what is really on trial here have been.
The high points.
Yeah, like when we found out what this you know, fucking show trial is really all about.
For me, it's about you know, a rendition, an extraordinary rendition, a kidnapping call. I'm not going to call it an extradition hearing. It's not. It's about making something, an extrajudicial killing, look legal. I still believe that they're trying to kill him. I firmly believe that they're trying to kill him through natural causes or a suicide, because, you know, it's a bit dangerous what they're doing now with the psychiatric thing. You know, I mean, they're also laying down the groundwork for if there is a suicide, they could say, well, we said it, you know, it's been in that open court, it's got Asperger's, there's an increased risk of suicide, and he did it. You know, I'm a bit worried about these psychiatric assessments that are being, you know, displayed to the world. I think that they will try to bump him off. in prison. Anyway, that is a big risk. Uh,
I want to come back to that, but I want to hear
Yeah.
Kendra's take on this as well.
Yeah.
To me, one of the biggest things that have come out to show what it's about is that, which I'm sure anybody who follows the Denver account has seen way too many times, but I had screenshotted when Claire Dobbins had basically, said, well, there's nothing that stops us from prosecuting a journalist under the Espionage Act. And to me, that was one of the most telling things that have come out about what this is about, is that that's just the government considers that to be their power. And that's part of the reason they're going after Assange even in the first place. I mean, if this was, if the people were in power at all in the US, then that wouldn't have happened in the first place. So that's one. I think that that's a really huge point, that we can see what this is about. Two, they've admitted that he's a journalist. So you have those two things. And then also, I mean, it's coming out with the medical testimony that they've been knowingly torturing somebody who also has, Asperger's, which is just absolutely disgusting.
And depression and suicidal ideation.
Exactly. And then also,
let's torture that guy.
I think what we can see from, not letting amnesty in, not letting that, even with the prosecution really trying to stop certain witnesses, they do not want the public to read WikiLeaks. They don't want them to know about any of this. And they don't want to know about the war crimes. They don't want people to know about what's really going on in these wars. And that's the point, is to silence somebody up who will release information, not when it's given to them by the CIA, but when it could actually benefit the public and the public could do something about it to change their future. And that's what they're trying to destroy there. And I think that that's come out in court.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Totally agree with everything you said there. But
yeah, this was probably the point
Amnesty, for example, as far as I know, Amnesty still has not recognized Julian as a prisoner of conscience. They did this with Mandela as well. They refused to recognize Mandela as a prisoner of conscience. Now,
really?
Yeah, for the longest time, it wasn't until it wasn't until they were after international free Mandela events that were organized in multiple countries that Amnesty finally issued a statement that yes, in fact, Mandela is a prisoner of conscience. But it took it took basically some We Are the World shit in order for that to happen.
Yeah. So I think, some of these NGOs have powers that they're not using, and I'd like to know why they're not using them. Why is Amnesty not just saying, okay, well, now we recognize him as a prisoner of conscience? It will change the whole playing field in a big way. The same thing with RSF. They could say there's a big risk that we will be reviewing the position of the UK, and we will be downgrading you to a much, much lower position. They certainly have grounds to do that. Even if they don't have time to actually change the ranking, they can say, we will, on the basis of what's been happening, we will downgrade you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I don't know how Reporters Without Borders rolls in terms of issuing what amounts to a threat. But we are, I mean, it's not like we aren't in communication with Rebecca Vincent. She was on 2 weeks ago, right before these started. We've been chatting a little bit throughout. We can ask, certainly. I'm trying to figure out what I said I'm looking at my chat here and I see that I nailed something. I'm not sure what I nailed or that I have experience. That I'm sure Rob's making a joke, but I would like to hear what that joke is about. I want to go back to the idea of weaponizing someone's mental health as a justifiable reason for targeted assassination, because this is probably the fucking darkest place that we're going to go. And I feel like it's easier to have these conversations with two lovely women as opposed to fucking Captain Beardy McScruff, that So let's talk about that for a moment.
Well, they weaponize everything. They weaponized rape. Remember, nobody's concerned about sex trafficking and rape when it's the Clintons or the Prince Andrews or whatever. But everybody was wildly screaming about the bogus rape allegations. Never any charges. We need to keep pressing that. There were never, ever any charges. There was a 9-year preliminary investigation. It's never happened before. 9-year in the civilized world. Anyway, so they will weaponize everything they can, including mental health or whatever. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. They are grappling at straws now, and they're successful because they censor us. We have difficulty getting our voice out there, whereas they can constantly lie. It's the big lie theory. Hitler's or Goering's or Goebbels. The big lie. If you repeat the big lie often enough, it becomes the truth. So they've got control of the media. They've got control of everything, and they keep lying all the time.
I do want proper credit to go to that quote, because the concept of if you tell a lie often enough, it becomes the truth can be found in the book Propaganda, which was written by Edward Bernays in the 19-teens. Edward Bernays is basically the father of modern propaganda, as weaponized by certainly Nazi Germany, but no less weaponized by the US and the UK and the other Five Eyes countries.
Well, people need
And that
to
actually, now
learn.
that we're
Sorry, just quickly. They need to learn critical thinking again. It's gone. It's gone. It's mush. It's all turned into mush. They've got to, restart, reset. I don't know. Get this thing that's in between their ears going again. Sorry, Kendra, go
well, and
ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, even to the point that I was making earlier, actually, that's a big one that I left out, because I do think that possibly even beyond the war crimes and the other things that WikiLeaks exposed, all the corruption, everything like that, I feel like maybe the biggest thing that they exposed is this propaganda network, is this network of information, and that is really what they are fighting to keep control of, because that is a pivotal point for, every country in the world, every government in the world is controlling that information source, and that I can't remember the documentary that WikiLeaks had done. It's something Media Stan, I believe, but where they're going, and they have these leaks and they go country after country, and they're not, every country's so still controlled even by the US, and it was so interesting. And so I think that's a really big thing that they are trying to put to bed now, is anybody who, and also especially WikiLeaks, because they actually made a splash. There's a reason that things were published that way. It's because they had to be. It's because that's the point that we're at. We're lied to so much that we have to be able to see, the truth in front of our faces.
And it's not only that they were published, people were interested.
Yes.
They are attacking us. People were interested in the publications massively by the millions. Mm-hmm. So this attack is not just on WikiLeaks. It's very clearly against all of us. If WikiLeaks had published and nobody was interested, who cares? They would have left it at that. Nobody would have bothered. The reason they went after WikiLeaks is because people were interested in the information by the millions. So that's what the real war is against us.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more. The simple fact that we've had U.S. pundits incorrectly state that it was a criminal act to read WikiLeaks just shows the level of depravity and ultimate control that the predator class, the permanent unelected state, the deep state, whatever the fuck you want to call these people. I don't care what your term for them is. I don't what I care is that there are a number of unelected sociopaths that control the day-to-day machinations of the U.S. empire. I don't care what your fucking pet name for them is. But these are people who clearly wouldn't piss on any of us if we were on fire, especially since they were the ones who set us on fire. But we've got a very small window, and Julian has remarked on this himself when he said that people in our generation are the last free generation. We're the last people who are going to remember anything closely resembling a free and open internet, or an era where you didn't have to put a face diaper on your children in order to go outside, or an era where there wasn't constant, all-encompassing mass surveillance. And we have to take those memories and we have to weaponize those memories in order to be able to be any kind of successful in achieving a relatively small amount of self-determination.
Well, the thing that it's interesting how they want to survey us without any checks or balances, but we can't survey them. So again, in a democracy, the people can monitor the people they have elected. In a real democracy, there's a right of recall, which we don't have. That's why we don't have real democracies. We can't even, we have to wait till the next election before we can get rid of them. So people have to understand, especially young people, because it's their future that is at stake. They have to understand that we have already crossed a very bad, dangerous threshold, and we're 1 foot in, maybe both feet in. And so, unless they want to live in a Nazi kind of state, or worldwide, because it's not just one country. We've got the US that wants to prosecute any journalist around the world. This is like we're watching. I put up in one of my tweets. This is Khashoggi all over again, and the chainsaw is Arbuthnot and Beretta. We are watching somebody being chainsawed in front of our eyes, and there's no real reaction from the masses. The masses must, in any way possible, they must react. Even if it's, I wrote an open letter to Lord Buckland. It's on Wise Up Action. It's on that site, asking Lord Buckland to remove Arbuthnot for judicial misconduct. We've had a very good response to that letter. It was delivered to Lord Buckland. So we've had a fairly good response from the public, given that we are so massively censored. But I would like it if people could go to that letter on Wise Up Action. It's called Open Letter to, I can even send it to you.
I'll put it up on screen here in a moment. I do want to put this up on screen for a little levity, because earlier during the live stream, I tweeted out the picture of that James Lewis has used for himself and tagged a number of comedians in it. I have a little response from Major Tom here. There we go. But wait, there's more. Oh shit, where did it go? I believe it's Professor X. There we go. Yeah. That's what we're working with right here with Mega Brain.
Yes. Well, there's a good tweet meme that was done on the basis of what Julian said about the elephant and the string, where he says maybe the elephant can be brought down by a piece of string. A lot of these criminals are usually stupid, and these people, they may have big titles, but they're criminals. If anyone challenges me on that, I can stand my ground on why they're criminals. So they better not come after me for that one. I can prove it. So these criminals are basically stupid, and that's why we should not be afraid. We should not be afraid of stupid people. So yes, they do have the guns and they do have the money, but we've got the brains. And
I also have guns. I don't have any money. But I feel
not too much on your own.
Yo, dude, it's
the best gun is the brain.
I
Yes,
agree. I
yes.
agree. There's a graphic novel called Transmetropolitan that came out about 25 years ago, and it's basically Hunter S. Thompson in the year 3000. I highly recommend people giving that a read through just for the fuck of it, because it's like super freaky and entertaining. But there's a moment where this character, who's called Spider Jerusalem, is basically live blogging an uprising in the town that he lives in. And he says, this keyboard is a gun. It's only got one bullet, but if aimed properly, it can blow the kneecaps off the whole fucking system. And I feel that strongly about, you know, the written word. And I also feel that strongly about what we're doing right now on a video platform, which is essentially, you know, journalism in its rawest form. We're not theorizing or part of the punditocracy here at all. You know, this is a citizen journalist live report of the biggest press freedom trial in our lifetimes, and the reason we have to do it is because the court itself has shut out, you know, other reporters and observational groups. Dear God. They sent the lawn crew after Kendra.
Yeah, you know, we had like what 8 wood chippers yesterday with Andre.
Yeah, yeah. It was worth it to see that fucking smile though. That was hilarious.
Sorry, guys. But yeah, so it sounds like construction starting, and I should get to work. But it was so good to catch up with you guys this morning, and nice to see you, Nikki. Thank you again.
Nice
I
to see
absolutely
you, Kendra.
love
Where do I
following your
follow you on? Do we follow each other? Do I follow you back? What's your handle?
So my personal handle is edebs13, but
Okay.
I also run our Denver Free Assange account, which is at DNV Free JA, and that's the one I'm on mostly because it's more important to get Assange stuff out. So that's where I am most of the time.
Okay,
yeah.
great. It was great
Kendra.
talking with you. Yeah.
You guys too. Have a good day. We'll catch up with you soon, huh?
Take care, Kendra. Thank you so much for popping in. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and cut out too. I have an extensive list for my job site that I have to pick up from the hardware store today.
Sorry, before you cut out, could I say, because we are so heavily censored on platforms like Facebook, Twitter, etc., I think if people, I'm not saying people should leave Twitter, if people can go on platforms that are not censored, like Mastodon, I think we should be also on those platforms. Mastodon is fantastic.
Yeah, I've been on Mastodon for a couple years.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We should be there. There's millions of people there as well. And we can get our message out without all the bullshit that we have to regularly deal with Twitter and Facebook and all the other, all the other bastards.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I feel a little bit like Alice in Wonderland, where I would give the exact same advice, but hardly ever follow it.
We'll get you an account set up soon, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I have accounts on alternative platforms like Minds and MeWe and shit like that. I just never check in on them. And I guess that at least a couple of the places that I have accounts are basically just fucking festering shitholes for wannabe Nazis. So I'm not even sure I want to try and engage.
Mastodon's okay. They do a good job of siloing the Nazis themselves. So
yeah.
Gab is crappy with that. MeWe's crappy with that. But no, Mastodon's all right. If you have to pick one of them to pay attention to, I'd pay attention to that one.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, Nikki, please tell people where they can find you, and thanks again for popping in.
Thank you. I'm happy to pop in whenever you want.
Awesome.
And I think my legal training could maybe explain certain things.
Absolutely.
Clear. So I'm happy to come on whenever you want. Where they can find me on Twitter, I am Katja Campus. And on Mastodon, I'm Dreamtime Aquarium. On Mastodon Social, I've got 2 accounts. I'm usually on the Mastodon Social. I can post that again, so perhaps you can retweet it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't use Facebook. It's useless. I don't really use it. So
Same.
Yeah, I have a Facebook account. I go there like maybe once a month to do some stuff for A or for Slow News Day, and then invariably get sucked in a pointless argument for like 3 hours, and then walk away from it again for a month. And that's my Facebook experience at this point.
Okay, but yeah, so I'm happy to come back on whenever you want. Let me know, and I'll make sure I'm available.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So just to give kind of a recap from what's been going on in the court before I bounce, they have brought in a representative from the UK Press Association. This again relates to the release of Julian's medical records as a I don't know, item of interest and or potential reporting from the press. So let's go 29 minutes ago. Actually, I think Mary has the better thread on this, so let me pull her account up real quick. Basically have all of this shit on as close to speed dial as possible. Let's travel back in time to about a half an hour ago. Judge wants to deal with the press request. Smith reads from a previous Supreme Court judgment. This court has a responsibility to deliver open justice, assist public scrutiny, plus understand how the justice system works versus harm to privacy. The prosecution supports the defense position that there is no need for further disclosure. Both parties say the press needs to argue why and how it would advance open justice. The judge says, aren't the statements in the public domain by virtue of being adopted from the court? Smith says, and look, before I go into what the conversation stemming from that was about, let me first say that this judge has made accessing court records on cases that she's been involved in next to, if not entirely, impossible. So no, the statements aren't in the public domain. We had the first 2 days of court, Stella Morris putting transcriptions of the occurrences of the day's events onto a website that has been taken down and removed. No, none of this is in the public domain. The live tweets, Joe Loria's reports, Kevin Gastola's reports, the interviews that we've all given, and these live streams are about as close to getting this information into the public domain as humanly possible. And we are fairly often not using direct quotes. So no. Let's see. Johnny Bush League, Joel Smith, advancing Supreme Court arguments on modern practice. It is up to the judge to conclude whether observers have not been able to understand proceedings without access to the medical documents. The judge says that's helpful, of course. The press rep at this point, who we haven't seen and can barely hear, will need to make an argument. Fitzgerald says it would have to amount to the press saying, despite what is unfolded in court, they still can't understand. Given the harm to someone who suffers from depression and to his family, given the private matters included, most of which has been covered, is going a step too far to release Julian Assange's medical records to the press at large. That's what this is about. But they are not past the first step, arguing the case. The press rep reads, no wish to cause grief or explore private medical details of his family. That's probably bullshit. We haven't seen the report, so we don't know what we don't know. That's like the second time that there's been an evocation of some Donald Rumsfeld logic just today. We will be guided by the judge, and we are guided by strong guidelines, but given it's a major reason the defense are arguing against extradition, we need to be able to explain to the public. The judge asks her to identify an example of where there was evidence the press was unable to understand. She refers to occasions when reference was made to a certain paragraph. The press rep asks if redactions could be considered in the medical statements. The judge gives her till 5 p.m. to provide a submission in writing, so she won't have a decision until Monday. Then they're taking a 10-minute break to see if there's anything else they can accomplish in court today. Mary's editorial on this says, by the way, it seems this press request is triggered by one journalist. The judge has asked the press rep to go back next door and canvass others, which might help in the representative's written submission. And that concludes what we know about today currently. So, you got any final thoughts on this, Sleepy Josh?
No, I mean, I don't know. It's just more red tape shit for the rest of the day, it looks like. I mean, I don't think they need to be releasing all this shit. It's bad enough we know what we know.
Look, I agree. I do. And I'm someone who is a pretty big advocate for knowing as much as humanly possible. But I would certainly draw a line at exposing, personal medical history, especially because of how easily it is for the press to manipulate and twist that, and how easily it can become weaponized in a way to steer the public away from supporting Julian Assange. Because now they can be like, oh, look, your hero is, a fucking suicidally depressed, autistic kid. Like, that's, and I just, that shit ain't fucking, dude, it makes me so angry.
It makes me sick, man. It's like, I'd be fucking depressed and suicidal if I had to deal with all those leaks too.
Yeah, if I was being tortured by the US government, the UK government, if I had literally been sold like fucking a slab of beef to the United Kingdom by the country that had granted me asylum and citizenship, I would be fucking terminally depressed too.
Yeah.
Oh, could I, are we still on air? I mean,
Yeah, we are. I take about 15 minutes to wrap up because I'm long.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something that I think is important. I did an FOI with the UK Crown Prosecution Service 3 months ago. I sent them another 2 emails reminding them of the FOI. FOI is Freedom of Information. So I sent them a request trying to get information. I was successful with the Swedes. I got 5,127 pages from the Swedes.
Really?
I did.
Let's set up a way to go through that, and a way for us to go through that like on a vigil.
All right, but let me say something that they now say that they never received my email. So I went to the next authority above them, and I said, well, I sent them all the information that shows that I did send the FOI to the right email address, etc., etc. They accepted that I did indeed send my FOI to the right address, to the right people. And they said, well, if you don't receive a response by this Friday today, we will issue a notice against them. Today, I got a response from the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, saying that they still don't know where my emails went. I mean, is this the UK or Zimbabwe, right? So they still don't know where my emails went, and could they have more time to answer my FOI? So I'm going to think about what I'm going to do about that. I do not believe for a second that they didn't receive my FOI request. So they've had 3 months, and I'm not going to be giving them more time. I will be contacting the ICO to say that I have difficulty believing that they didn't receive 3 emails when they were sent to the right address, and I never got a message, delivery failure, and no, they shouldn't have more time.
Good job.
Excellent.
It's a stalling tactic. That's how I see it.
Oh yeah, but they're doing it all the time. Most of my FOIs have, I've done a lot of FOIs. The responses are very interesting. The one for the radio, they responded positively In what sense? They gave him a radio within 5 days because they didn't want to deal with answering the questions. So the FOIs have been quite good, actually, even when their response is bullshit. So that in itself, a bullshit response is newsworthy.
Agreed. Thank you so much for constantly applying that pressure. And I'm serious about having you on to explore the talks that
Whenever you want. If you want tomorrow, yeah, I can be there tomorrow. If that's
I think we're trying to organize a panel with the journalists who have had access to the cloud video feed for tomorrow, but certainly the following week.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
And this is also something that I mean, the time difference kind of sucks because
It's frozen.
Yeah, give him a second. Let's see what happens. Sorry, guys. We do it live.
Yeah.
Let me message him, see what happened. Oh man, I've adopted Steve's do. I'm online with Steve too much. All right, I'm wondering if his internet went out. It's quite possible.
Maybe. My internet cable was damaged a few weeks ago, and apparently it was the only cable in the whole building because I called my server to come in and check it out. And I said, well, didn't the others in the building complain? He said, yours is the only cable that was damaged.
Shocking. That's so creepy.
There
he is.
Maybe it was a coincidence.
I don't believe in coincidences anymore.
Wow. That was right when I was saying it was unhelpful to have a production meeting live on the air. Jitsi decided to kick me off.
Sorry about
that. I'm going to go ahead and wrap, though. Nikki, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks to Kendra. And again, follow the Denver account. Kendra does, she extra miles it in terms of finding people and articles that I would never even.
Oh yeah, she's great. She's great.
Yeah, it wouldn't even cross my mind.
I'm already following her. I'll check. Then I will follow her. Yeah.
And just my undying thanks to the people who helped make our return to DC possible. Everybody who participated in either donating to or sharing the GoFundMe. You really did make this happen. I can't thank you enough. Thanks always to Sleepy Josh on the ones and twos, and to everyone in the chat. I fucking love you. We will see you maybe this evening, definitely tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And until then, good luck to us all.